Good morning and welcome to the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Shark and Ray Awareness Day live. Yeah, that's right. We are live this morning, guys, live from the North Carolina Aquarium at Fort Fisher. This is the Cape Fear Shoals habitat right here behind me. We'll have some sharks coming by here throughout this presentation. So thank you for joining us. My name is Fatzinger. I'm the director for the North Carolina Aquarium at Fort Fisher. I am also the program leader for AZA's SAFE Sharks and Rays program. SAFE stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. And the role of the program is to create events like this to help inspire appreciation and awareness of these wonderful animals, but also we work to bring global leaders together to create partnerships to help identify the greatest challenges and threats to shark and ray populations, how to protect those animals, and how to collectively protect our ocean ecosystems. Joining me today is Madeline Marens. Madeline is a aquarist for the North Carolina Aquarium, which means she gets to take care of all these really amazing animals you see behind me. She is also the lead researcher for our sand tiger shark research program for the North Carolina Aquariums. So before I turn it over to Madeline, what I do want to share is that we have the opportunity for you guys to engage with us as well. So at the end of the presentation, there's going to be a chance to ask us questions. So anytime throughout the next 10 or 12 minutes, if a question comes to mind, go ahead and enter that into the chat feature on your computer. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll come back and we'll try to answer those questions for you. Sound good? Awesome, great. Madeline, we're going to kick it over to you so you can share a little bit more about these awesome animals we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Madeline Marens. I work at the North Carolina Aquarium at Fort Fisher, and I study sand tiger sharks, who are the star of the show today. So chances are, if you've been to the aquarium, you have seen the sand tiger shark. They are an iconic aquarium species with their fearsome, toothy grin, but they have a really docile behavior about them. And so they do really well in our care, and they help create a connection with the public to inspire appreciation and conservation of this really cool species. Like other shark species, they are facing global declines. They have a really low birth rate. It takes them a really long time to mature. And so therefore, they're really susceptible to overfishing. So it's really important that we protect these really cool species that are really important in creating healthy ecosystems out in the ocean. So right here off of our coast, along the East Coast, our sand tiger shark population, we are learning more about them in the wild and in our care to help protect this really cool species. So Hap, I'm gonna turn it over to you. My first question for you is, what is some of the collaborative research that the North Carolina Aquarium is a part of to learn more about and study these sand tiger sharks in our care and in the wild too?
Cool, great question, Madeline. Thank you very much. And as an AZA institution, we are focused on creating the best level of care for the animals in our facilities. And by ensuring that we have the highest level of care, we can continue to create that connection between our visitors and between the animals and help inspire them to care about animals in the wild. So about 6 years ago, a group of us came together with a desire to learn more about how we can provide better, greater care for sand tiger sharks. And that led us down this path of discovery in which we realized we really needed to know more about what a healthy sand tiger shark looked like in the wild. So boy, that opened the doors and that launched this program that we are now so fortunate to be blessed with a collaboration of over 20 AZA institutions, research facilities, and research colleagues who were able to get together in meetings at wonderful locations like this. And we're able to come together and help identify what the greatest concerns are at the time, or what are the threats? What actions do we need to take in order to improve either the level of care in our aquariums and zoos, or how we can help sustain healthy populations in the wild. So this opportunity to collaborate with these amazing professionals has really, as I mentioned before, opened the doors to this incredible research program, which, you know, is where you come into play, Madeline. You have an incredible program that you are overseeing. And can you kind of share some of the bits and pieces of what you're doing with these animals?
Yeah, I would love to. We have a great picture of me actually out in the field working up a sand tiger shark. So I'm lucky enough to go out in the wild and study these sharks, like Hap was saying. To learn and take better care of animals in our care, we first need to understand what these animals are doing in the wild. So we are tagging these sand tiger sharks and tracking their movements along the North Carolina coast, but as they're highly migratory, just means that they travel great distances to find resources like food or a mate. We want to understand what those important habitats are and where they are. So what we use is a technique called acoustic telemetry, which is just a fancy word that means we equip these animals with an electronic tag that gives out a unique code. And we're able to detect these unique individuals by placing these what we call hydrophones in the water that can detect these individuals, and we put them at known places these sharks are known to hang out, like shipwrecks and reefs off the North Carolina coast. But through collaboration with other researchers, we're able to also track their movements and migration patterns up and down the East Coast as well. So yeah, this helps us better understand what habitats are really important to them so we can help protect them.
That's fantastic, Madeline. So what we've come to realize is that North Carolina is a really important location. We know that we have sand tiger sharks year round, but can you give us a little bit more information, maybe some more details about why North Carolina seems to be a real important spot?
Absolutely. So North Carolina coast, if you're not familiar, is known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. And we have a great map to show what this means. So if you see a map of the East Coast, you see the North Carolina coast juts out a little bit, which means it has really treacherous waters. And it has become the final resting place of these ships, predating back to even before the Civil War. And over time, these shipwrecks become artificial reefs, which means really productive habitats, like these amazing, what I think of as like micro ecosystems. So settling organisms over time come in and settle on the wrecks, which attracts smaller fish and then larger predatory fish like sand tiger sharks. And we have a really amazing video that we have, one of our divers has shared of a shipwreck off the coast of North Carolina. And we see throughout the year, large groups of sand tiger sharks on these shipwrecks. And you can see some smaller bait fish hanging around, but in the distance, you see the shadow of a sand tiger shark. So they're highly migratory, like I was saying. So they go up and down the East Coast. And North Carolina is right in the middle of their migratory pathway. But we think it might be, one, a great pit stop in their migration. But because of this great food resource, it might be a great feeding location. But look how many sharks are hanging out together. We think that there may be a social aspect as well. We think mating may occur here. And we also, what prompted some of our research is we see really large females that are mature off of their coast.
Hey, tell us more about that, Madeline. What about those mature females in the coast of North Carolina might be really important to help conserve or protect this population?
So with onboard ultrasounds, when we're out doing field work, we've been able to identify pregnant females off the coast of North Carolina. And this is huge, right? So like I was saying before, sand tiger sharks have a very low birth rate, one of the lowest of any shark and ray population. So if we know where these pregnant females are hanging out, these are the animals that are ensuring future populations of sand tiger sharks, right? So it's really important that we protect these habitats that pregnant females are hanging out, where reproductive behavior like mating may occur, and where these where these sand tiger sharks are giving birth, which we don't know yet, but with this tracking program, we may be able to identify and protect these critical reproductive habitats. So as you can see from these videos that we shared and what happened, I've talked about, these are really cool, these shipwrecks are really cool habitat for sand tiger sharks and important for them. But divers are also able to go down and experience these really cool habitats as well. So Hap, my question to you is, what are ways that the local community and divers can get involved to help support this really cool and really important research?
Yeah, another great question, Madeline. And as she pointed out, and as you see from that video, It's a pretty cool opportunity to dive in North Carolina. And we have thousands of people from across the globe that come here every year to experience the abundance of shipwrecks, the diverse marine life. You know, a lot of times the water is crystal clear, and there's a lot of large sharks, these aggregations of sand tiger sharks, which is really cool. So we get a lot of divers that come here. And so we started thinking about all those people that are in the water, they're taking pictures of these sharks, or they're using their GoPros to capture those animals. And we tried to think about how we could use that to help support our research so we could learn more about it. And so we came up with a great program. We worked with our colleagues in Australia. We developed a program here called Spot a Shark USA. And what Spot a Shark USA does is it allows recreational divers or scientific divers to upload the images to our website, spotasharkusa.com. And then we are able to process those images and use these spot patterns. And as you see on this shark here, they have a series of spots. Those spots are unique to each individual animal. And through this program, we are able to create unique identifications for every shark out there. So as recreational divers submit more images, we can then track and better understand how sharks are moving between one wreck or another, how they're hanging out over any period of time on a wreck site, or maybe the social interactions that they're having with other types of sharks. Here's a great example right here. This is Claude. Claude is a juvenile sand tiger male. He was photographed by one of our wonderful citizen scientists, Tanya Hooperman. She's an incredible underwater photographer, but she's also a shark advocate. And you know, because of her images, we were able to capture Claude on the shipwrecks a year ago when we felt that he was only a couple months old at that time. And then through the course of the past 15 months, we've been able to catalog Claude's presence on these shipwrecks. So we can learn more about how Claude and other sand tiger sharks are using these wrecks. So it goes back to that overall goals. What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to do? As AZA institutions, we are trying to create a connection with the animals in our care and hopefully inspiring people to care about the animals in the wild and help conserve and protect those animals. So through Spot a Shark, we're helping to create a connection with our diver community and these sharks. But we're hoping that the larger picture that we can help turn the tide on the issues and the concerns around global shark and ray populations, which are huge. Now, a lot of people want to know what action can they take to help save sharks. And it may not be really clear at first, but there are a couple things that are pretty easy. And one of those is just misconceptions around sharks. People have this very negative attitude towards sharks and this belief about sharks and rays. And really what we hope through not only the SAFE program, but through coming to our facilities and seeing a shark or a ray up close, touching those animals, that you, our visitors, our guests, our communities can be inspired by the beauty of those animals, can understand the diversity of those animals. Those animals are in all shapes and sizes. They live in deep oceans to shallow seas, some of them in freshwater rivers. It's really amazing the diversity, but also that you understand the very, very important role that these animals play in helping to balance or play a critical role in ocean ecosystems and contribute to global ocean health. So it's really, really important that we change this misconception around sharks being a bad thing. The other thing that everybody can do, if you eat seafood, the biggest thing you can do is know where your seafood comes from. Yeah. Do you know where that shrimp is coming from? Do you know how that tuna is being harvested? Do you know which products are good and not so good to eat? Well, a lot of fish that we eat are harvested in methods that may hurt other populations of animals, specifically sharks and rays, or they may damage ecosystems. So our partners at Monterey Bay Aquarium have a wonderful resource that anybody can use. It's their Seafood Watch program. And you can go in and you can learn more about how to make a sustainable seafood choice, which products are better to eat over other products. And it's really about consumers making a decision over what options they use. Madeline, you've got a green moray poking over your shoulder. That's pretty cool. Yeah, awesome. But guys, thank you very much. We appreciate everybody for taking time with us today, for joining us today and learning a little bit more about the sand tiger shark work that we're doing here in the North Carolina Aquariums. We are going to answer a few questions, but we also want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity, if you haven't already, to go into the chat function, submit your questions, and then over the next few minutes, Madeline and I will see if we can get those answered for you. Sound good, Madeline?
Yeah, thank you, Hat.
Awesome. All right. What do we have?
We do have one question from Savannah. She wants to know, are there any challenges to caring for sharks in an aquarium? And if so, how do we overcome those challenges?
That's a great question. I can take that. So thank you, Savannah, for that question. So yeah, here at the aquarium, our aquarists take really good care of these not only sharks, but as you can see behind Hap, sometimes these sharks are in large habitats with other schooling fish, sea turtles. So we want to make sure that we understand their diet and their life history needs so that we're able to take care of these animals throughout their lives. So number one is always making sure that you have a fat and healthy and happy shark. So we have diet regimens. You can actually see that these animals behind Hap are getting pretty excited. It's actually almost their feeding time. And also making sure that we have the right environment for them, like temperature and water quality. So just we can take the best care that we can for these animals.
All right. We also have a question from Kendra. Is there something particularly exciting about researching sharks versus other aquatic life?
Well, they're the coolest, but I'm a little biased. It is really challenging to work in the ocean. You know, you have to make sure you have perfect conditions. You're working over the side of the boat, 20 miles offshore. And you have to know where these sharks are to be able to get to them and work them up. But it's just really rewarding. We have to work as a team. You know, we usually are in a really small boat packed with 4 to 5 people in there. There's someone driving the boat. There's someone tagging the animal. There's someone ultrasounding the animal. So just being able to get together and work as a team is really rewarding. And then the fact that you're just doing really impactful conservation research that has management implications is really rewarding as well.
Excellent. We have a question from Matt. He's wondering, what do sand tigers, sharks eat, and are humans on the menu?
Hey, let me take that one. Great question, Matt. And that's part of that concern, that misconception we're really trying to change with the public. We're not on any shark's menu. In the wild, sand tiger sharks will eat any number of types of fish. They'll eat things like squid if they can get them. But they're really focused on and have evolved over a very long period of time to feed exclusively on specific types of ocean prey, not humans. When we do encounter situations where sharks and humans have a negative encounter, it is typically a situation of a mistake between the shark and the human being in the same place at the same time under the conditions that lead to an exploratory type of a bite. And it's not ever typically the act of a shark trying to, you know, hunt down and bite a human. We are not on their menu.
That's one of the things too. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, you can go, Madeline. That's fine.
I was just thinking back to the sand tiger shark. So they have these really toothy, fearsome appearance, which actually gives them a really bad reputation and why they have been overfished throughout history. But actually they eat things like squid and really small fish. Their pointy teeth are actually great for grabbing small fish prey. And that, even though they have this really fearsome appearance, they're actually one of the most docile shark species, and what makes them so great as an animal that we can keep in our care.
All right, thank you. We have another question from Savannah. She wants to know, what's something surprising or unexpected that we've discovered through our shark research?
Ooh, I want this one, Madeline.
Okay.
Sorry. So I think for me, the greatest opportunity that we've had and the greatest surprise we've had is the pregnancy of the females. So we have had a lot of information over the years about these sharks on these wreck sites. We have seen them while we were diving, but we never were able to conduct the research. Now that we're conducting the research, we understand that there's a huge number of females on these wrecks. A huge number of those females are pregnant. And that's really a mystery that we have not, unlocked yet. And that is really the most exciting thing I think that we're doing right now, is looking at the opportunity of identifying where these animals are actually giving birth, which is unknown to now. So we're really excited, and I look forward to working with Madeline and all of our collaborative partners on helping to identify that.
Another question from Savannah. How do we transition the public awareness of sharks to a more positive story and one focused on their ecological importance?
I think, Savannah, that comes down to continuing to spread the message, to continue to create this awareness, to continue to engage in conversations around the big picture. The big picture is that we are the top predators. The big picture is that we are limiting populations of all species on this planet. And we are the only ones that can help to reverse this or change this. So it is our actions we have to take, decisions that we have to make from a consumer standpoint, from a voting standpoint, where we have to be the ones to lead that charge. And we have to help people to understand and appreciate that these animals behind us are not those animals that have been depicted in movies and social media. These animals are well versed in surviving in the oceans. They have done this for tens of thousands of years, surviving and thriving in those conditions. And when we came along, this is when we started to see challenges in their population. So we really need to continue to just spread the information, share the information, become educated yourself, and by participating in programs like this. So how are we doing on time, Andy?
We are at about almost 25 minutes in. We do have a few more questions. We can address those here, or we can go to the comment section and address them there.
So let's go ahead and let's wrap this up. I really appreciate everybody's questions. Let's go ahead and we'll provide those in the comment section because questions keep coming in, and it's a great opportunity for us to work with you guys. But we also want to make sure that we save plenty of opportunity for everybody to come back and enjoy the rest of the presentations today. At the top of every hour, we will have a new presentation with wonderful people from across AZA, from across the research field. They're going to be sharing information with you. And that'll be a slide that comes up on the screen. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Madeline, for being here today. And thank you for everybody else for helping to support and helping to come in here and learn more about the program at the North Carolina Aquariums.
Thank you, Hat. Thank you, everyone.
What's this line?
Super fun. Everybody still working.
Are we good to go? Cool.
Perfect. Talk.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shark and Ray Awareness Day Live, presented by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums and the SAFE Conservation Program. SAFE stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. It's a collaborative program of AZA Zoos and Aquariums and their conservation partners to leverage the collective experience of our 230 plus institutions and the broad platform provided by our 200 million annual visitors. Today, we're hosting 8 live interviews, one of which was earlier, and about sharks, rays, and their conservation. At the end of each interview, we'll be able to answer your questions, so do leave them in the chat, and we'll have them passed on to us. You can see the full schedule for today in the YouTube description below the video, and we'll also add it at the end of the video. My name is Jenny. I'm a PhD student researching sharks in Ireland, and I'm here today on behalf of Sharks for Kids. Sharks for Kids is an educational organization whose goal is to create a new generation of shark advocates through access to a range of educational materials. Our team brings together scientists, educators, conservationists, and professional videographers and photographers to create a really unique opportunity for the next generation to learn why sharks need kids and kids need sharks. And we're creating the next generation of shark advocates through education, outreach, and adventure. We offer in-person and virtual classroom talks, as well as webinars and a wide range of curriculum activities and games that can be found on our website, sharksforkids.com. But today, I'm really pleased to be hosting Dr. Enie Hensel. She's speaking to us from the US in North Carolina. She's also a Sharks for Kids ambassador and a science advisor, and is going to briefly talk to us about the ecological importance of sharks, rays, and other large marine predators. Enie, welcome. I'm really pleased to have you today to host you. Why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit further and tell us about the power of these predators?
Sounds great. Hello, everyone. I'm an ecologist that focuses on the role of predators in coastal ecosystems. So that can be marshes, oyster reefs, seagrass beds, and coral reefs. And today I'm going to briefly discuss the power of predators like sharks and rays. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can go ahead and get started. Okay.
Perfect.
All righty. See everything okay? Great. All righty. So let's go ahead, make sure it's transitioning properly. All right. For the over 500 species of sharks and rays on this planet, as predators, meaning an animal that eats another animal, sharks and rays play an important role in our oceans through interactions they have with their surrounding organisms and environments. Today, I'm going to present you with 3 examples on the ecological roles of predators, like sharks and rays. I'll show you how they alter species interactions and their environment through eating, scaring, and peeing. To start off, I'm going to use a coral reef ecosystem in the Bahamas. So many sharks play the role of top predator, just like this tiger shark right here, if you can see my mouse, where they have no natural predators of their own. Here in my example, the tiger shark has an ecological impact on its ecosystem through eating reef fish like this barracuda or even sea turtles. And by consuming these organisms, the shark's presence is helping in keeping these populations at a sustainable level. So the idea is that if the tiger shark wasn't there, excuse me, so if the tiger shark wasn't there, then their prey populations would consume more, and it would lead to overconsumption of lower trophic organisms like lobster, sponges, and other small fish. And I don't know about you, but I personally want to make sure that snapper and lobster are always in our waters. They are tasty, and they're an important fishery for many island communities. So another power that predators have is the ability to change the behaviors of the organisms around them, particularly those that are potential prey or that can be eaten by the predator. They can be kickstarted by that prey seeing the predator, hearing, and even smelling. So as you can imagine, big predators like the tiger shark, they can make quite the visual impact when they swim by. So for my scaring example, I wanted to share with you some research that was conducted in Western Australia with Dr. Heithaus and his colleagues, where they examined the movement of these tiger sharks and these sea turtles, as well as their diet patterns over time. Just bear in mind, with my limited time today, it's going to be pretty simplified, but this research took over 1 to 2 decades. So here in Shark Bay in Western Australia, it is filled with these beautiful seagrass meadows. So right here, this is a seagrass bed here, and then in the wider bits, you see sand. And just a little bit of background, in the middle of the seagrass bed, that typically tends to be the most shallow part of the bed. And then on the edges, they tend to be a little bit deeper. And so what Dr. Heithaus and his colleagues found was that in the summer months, tiger sharks were present throughout the bay. And while they were present, green turtles would stick to the edge of these seagrass beds. They had a very specific grazing pattern. And we assume that they stayed on the edge because it was deeper and safer. And safer is assumed because they have more depth. They have more dimensions to swim to if they were to see the shark. And so what does this mean for the seagrass? Well, these beds were essentially being maintained or even pruned, just like your bushes in your yard would be. So the seagrass, by those sea turtles staying on that edge. So then in the winter months, there are no sharks within Shark Bay. And so we didn't see any distinct sea turtle movement pattern when sharks weren't present. One thing we did notice was that there was an increase in individuals grazing within the center of that bed, where it's more shallow. And there's also a more palatable or even tasty seagrass for these sea turtles. So overall, this research from Dr. Heithaus and his colleagues is a great example in how just the mere presence of these large-bodied tiger sharks can completely alter their prey's feeding behavior, which it has cascading impacts to the entire ecosystem. By the adult green sea turtle not consistently grazing within that seagrass bed all year round, there's still non-grazed seagrass habitat for the animals to live in. So like snails, starfish, and crabs. Then my last predator power that I wanted to go over today is peeing. Yep, you heard me right. And don't get me wrong, pooping is probably very important. I just happen to study fish pee, and so that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. But as I've mentioned a few times today, many top predators like sharks and rays have large bodies, and these animals are known to have really wide home ranges. And so they'll travel very far distances to eat, to rest, to reproduce, etc. And because they're so large and they move around so much, they have the ability to transport a lot of nutrients from one habitat to another, which in the case of coral reef ecosystems, nutrients is incredibly limited. That's why the water is so clear, because there's no nutrients in that water. But even though the clear water the coral reefs live in doesn't have that much nutrients, coral reefs are some of the most productive and biodiverse ecosystems in the world. And this is because of super tight nutrient cycling systems. And this is where the role of predators or just all consumers kind of comes into play. So on healthy reefs, kind of set up with this one, with this little cartoon here, you'll have healthy complex reefs that'll allow a lot of fish to aggregate on. And when you have this really healthy fish population community, they are aggregating, they're resting, and they're peeing all day long. And a recent research from my colleague, Dr. Jake Algayer, and myself has shown that the ratio, I know this gets a little technical, but the ratio of nitrogen to phosphorus that a really healthy fish population on a reef creates through their fish pee can be really important for coral and seagrass growth. So yet again, just being present, predators can have a strong influence on their environment. So just to review, and they grow. So just to review, sharks and rays are powerful predators that play an important role in our oceans. And there are just 3 examples today of their ecological role is through eating, scaring, and peeing. You're on mute, Jenny.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's super cool. We always think about sharks and rays as having a really important role because they eat the fish below them. But what you're saying is that their role goes way beyond that, and because they are actually scaring, and they're actually having an impact through the things that they do, and so through scaring and peeing as well. But how can they have such an impact with those two things? How can they have such a big impact?
Jenny, that's a really good question. And it does lead me into my last topic I wanted to cover before we have to leave today. But before we get there, it's really the two things I'm trying to hone in for today. Sharks and rays are really good examples to have a strong influence on their environment because they are large and highly mobile, so moving around a lot. Because sharks are so large, just swimming around, they can be interpreted by other animals as predator risk behavior. So it changes the way they feed, it changes how often they're feeding, maybe they're hiding for shelter. And then they're also, because they're so large, they're peeing and pooping a lot, like very often because they're moving around. And because of their large bodies, they have a lot to excrete, to pee. But unfortunately, and getting into my last topic here, these powerful traits, being large and moving around and having large home ranges, really comes at a consequence, because it also means that they're really vulnerable to human-driven changes in our oceans. Because they're so large, it typically means the animal takes a long time to mature and to grow. And by having large home ranges, they are using different habitats, and so they are more susceptible to the habitat degradation that we're having. Even like shoreline development is the example that I wanted to cover with you all today. I understand shoreline development is on land, but it really has quite an impact on the nearshore ecosystems that are around them. And that's because these shallow waters, so if we kind of go into this area on my left on this picture, we have a really beautiful tidal creek that's not developed with a bunch of mangroves on the side, a lot of structure there. Then once you get to the development and go down to this guy, we're gonna go under the water real quick. Here's a nurse shark just swimming right over a patch reef. So these patch reefs are important foraging and nursery habitat for a lot of sharks and rays. And what ends up happening with development is you get runoff water with a lot of like human nutrients, and you get a lot of sedimentation in the water. And this really creates kind of a degraded, non-healthy system for them to either grow up in or to eat in. And
great.
sorry,
so shark nutrients are great, human nutrients not so great for these habitats.
Yeah, and it comes down to that that unique, it's called stoichiometry, but it's that ratio of nitrogen to phosphorus. We don't give the best ratio of our nutrients. The way it's created is completely different than how fish are. And because these systems and these clear waters have that tight nutrient cycling, any little changes can really have a strong cascading impact. Yeah, and so just to kind of, you're good?
Yeah.
So just to kind of finish up, so for a recent drone project of mine, I found that shark and ray abundances were nearly double in these non-developed areas. And so I essentially took a drone to those developed areas and non-developed areas. And as you can kind of see in this clip here, I counted how many rays, how many sharks I was seeing, and there was double the amount during the day on non-developed shorelines. And so why might this be the case? Well, when you have shoreline, this is just one hypothesis here, but when you have shoreline development, you typically take out the natural habitation that is there. And there's often times where you can replace it with something sturdier that's going to keep your lawn in, like a seawall. But when you take out that mangrove wasn't really, so mangroves, I'm sticking with a Bahamian setup here for my research, but I mean, this can be salt marshes, this can be oyster reefs, it can be just about anything of that natural habitat. But sticking with these red mangroves, they're a really important habitat for little fish. So when adult or subadult sharks are looking for food, there can be a concentrated amount within these non-developed areas. and they play an important role for shade and for protection for juvenile sharks and rays. But when you remove that mangrove, you're exposing them to predators and to the like abiotic factors like the sun. But then what you're also doing is that you no longer have those mangroves or the marshes to hold in sediment. And so what you end up getting is you get really cloudy water where seagrass can't grow. And so you get a real loss of habitat for the prey as well as for the sharks and the rays. And so that's really all I wanted to cover with you all today. I know our time is limited, and if we have any time for questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you so much, Enie. That was really interesting. I love to find out about the different ways that sharks and rays have impacts, because their role goes far beyond what a lot of people realize. So if we have any questions, make sure to put them in the chat, and we will have them forwarded on to us. We're going to start with a simple one that you might know. If not, I'm pretty sure that I know this one. It's kind of like a trivia question. Colton, age 7, asks, what shark is the fastest shark and how fast does it swim?
Oh, Jenny, you will have to help me with this, because for facts like this, I normally prep a little bit, but I know it's in the mako family, and I feel like they can go 45 miles per hour.
Yeah, it's the short fin mako.
Okay.
Shark. They're pretty cool, but some people think that maybe the salmon shark could possibly go as fast. So the thing is, there's still so much that we yet to discover about so many species of sharks that these things can be changing all the time. So short fin mako shark is the fastest. And while we wait for more questions to come through, I have one for you. You mentioned very briefly at the end that you use drones. Why did you choose to use drones in your research? What are the benefits of using it?
Oh, that's a really great question. Not to go too much into it, there was a huge project that I was working with for protected areas with the Bahamian marine government, or the marine resources within the government. But it was for the question that we were asking, simply, how are sharks using these near shore ecosystems during the day? I wanted to use something that didn't bother or be intrusive or invasive to these sharks in any way. I didn't want to change their behavior by being present in the water, because even boats in the water, the sound can mess with their foraging or their eating behaviors. Catching them, disrupts their day. They're still non-lethal. You can let them go. But for the question I was asking, I wanted to be as non-invasive as possible. And being in the air, not any of the sharks seemed to mind whatsoever. So it was a really great non-invasive method that I could use because I was looking at things in clear water.
Yeah, that's really cool. And scientists, especially shark scientists, are always looking for new ways to study sharks and new tools to be able to do it without having an impact on them. They're always trying to improve the ways they're studying sharks to make them non-invasive. And drones has been a really cool tool that shark scientists, but also marine mammal scientists, have been able to use in many different ways. I'm using drones to be able to find the sharks in the first place. So I'm studying blue sharks in the middle of the ocean, and we send the drones up to be able to find them in the middle of the ocean to try and save time and money, because it's also research is really expensive. So if we can find ways to really make it the most effective as possible, it helps us, and in turn it helps sharks.
That's so cool, because you're not going to just be driving around all day using your tank of gas. You can kind of prop up and let the drone do its thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've got one more question from Corrigan, age 7, and actually I think this is a really cool question for you. Do you know which shark is the most endangered, shark or ray?
I do, and it's actually one I've had the pleasure to work with last year. And that is the it's sawfish in general. I worked with the small tooth sawfish last year, but sawfish are considered to be the most endangered marine species in the entire world. So if you live somewhere where there are sawfish, consider yourself honored and do whatever you can to protect their habitat, because that's mostly what is happening to their populations, is they get entangled in fishing. Their rostrums, their nose, it looks like a saw, like it has little teeth around it. People did used to like to have them on their mantle, but right now, one of their most concerning threats to their population is the habitat change. They really need that vegetation to get away from the sun and to look for food. Yeah, great question.
Corrigan says he loves sawfish. Yes, sawfish is super cool animals. And Corrigan, if you ever see a sawfish, I believe there is somewhere, and Enie will be able to answer this, there's somewhere that you can actually report your sighting and in turn become a citizen scientist and help raise that way, sharks and rays that way.
Yes, you definitely can. It really depends on what country you're in, but there is an international one, and I am blanking on the acronym right now. But there is a Sawfish Conservation Society. And so if you were to message the Sawfish Conservation Society, they would be able to help you out and where you need to, report that for, be it a country or even a state, yeah, exactly. They'll be able to assist you with that.
And that's really important. And it's one of the ways that people can really help sharks and rays is to become citizen scientists. And there's plenty of organizations out there that help, that need people's help to carry out their science and conservation.
Definitely. We only have so many eyes to observe out there. So if somebody's willing to record something that they've seen by, taking a little GPS point for us, telling us where they saw it, it's really great information, especially with these animals that are so endangered and there's so few of them.
Yeah, so I really encourage anyone that's watching us to find out if maybe their local aquarium or any organizations where they are running citizen science projects, because you can really help sharks that way. And it leads me to our last question, because we're running out of time. What else can people do who are watching us? What can they do to help sharks and rays? In your opinion, what's the biggest thing that people out there can do to help sharks and rays?
Great question. If we have time, I'd love for you to chime in, but really it's advocacy. Sharks have a really bad rap. It's always so great, to have that shot of the great white coming out and eating something, but they're really not man-eating machines. And so if you can express a fun fact that you've learned today to your friends, to your family, it really starts to break that barrier that sharks are not man-eating machines. We're not on their menu. We look weird to them. We don't taste good to them. We're not even in their, menu. We're not in the water. We don't naturally live there. And so, in fact, they actually play a really important role in keeping our oceans healthy. And so you can use the examples of eating, scaring, and peeing.
Yeah, I definitely think it's really important to share your knowledge with everyone. So keep learning about sharks, keep learning about rays, and share everything you learn with your family, your friends, and really talk about it and spread the love, because that's one of the biggest ways we can help. So with that, thank you so much, Enie. And to everyone watching us, we hope you enjoyed. The schedule for the rest of the day is up on the screen. Don't forget to visit the sharksforkids.com website and to follow along with the rest of the talks all day long. Thanks for joining us, and tune in again at 1 p.m. for our next presentation. And I believe it's Mote Marine Laboratory.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks.
see that we are starting to stream here. We'll get underway from Mote Marine Lab in Sarasota in about 30 seconds. Stand by.
Everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here for Shark and Ray Awareness Day. We are coming to you live from Mote Marine Laboratory located in Sarasota, Florida. My name is Ross, and we are super excited to not only be members of AZA, but we're also members of the Species Survival Plan. And one of our programs and one of our areas of science here that we focus on in particular are sharks. So perfect for today's theme. Now, not only are we a world-famous marine laboratory, but we're also a public aquarium. Now, the really exciting thing about Mote Marine Laboratory research is that we have been doing shark science since 1955 with our founding director, Dr. Eugenie Clark. Now, way back in 1955, she pioneered the field of shark behavioral science, and we still continue a lot of the work that she started way back then. Not only did she pioneer the field of marine science, but she also pioneered the field of women in science in general. And we're going to be meeting some amazing shark scientists that still work here at Mote, as well as some fantastic, or should I say, fantastic female marine biologists as well. Now, we do a lot of shark science here at our main campus in Sarasota. However, we do a lot of amazing field research as well. So that leads us to our first panelist for our Shark and Ray Awareness Day presentation. I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Bob Huter, who has been at Mote for 32 years. Additionally, he is the director of the Shark Research Center here at Mote Marine Laboratory. Dr. Bob Huter, thank you so much for joining us. And can you tell us a little bit more about some of the international field work that you do with sharks and rays?
Well, thank you, Ross, and it's a pleasure to see all you AZA fans today, talking from Sarasota, Florida. As Ross mentioned, our lab was started by Jeannie Clark in 1955, and I was fortunate to come here in 1988 and still interact with her in her later years of her career. And I've followed in her footsteps, as have all of our scientists here working on sharks. And we've gone all over the world. We've gone to every continent in our field research on sharks, except for Antarctica. And there's a good reason that we have to do that, besides the fact that it's a wonderful career. And that is that sharks are highly migratory species. They don't generally sit still. They don't sit in one place. Many of the species that we work on cross international boundaries. And as we've gotten more and more in the last few decades into conservation-oriented research, we've realized that by discovering where sharks go in their lives, we'll go into different countries, jurisdictions, and we need to work with those countries to develop conservation action plans. This slide shows me actually in Cuba teaching Cuban students in shark biology, and you see in the upper right is our work on whale sharks in Mexico. The lower right is closer to home, some of our work on hammerheads here, which is a species that we've come back to more recently to work on. And this is one of my favorite photos of all. This was the first shark tagged with a satellite tag that Valerie's going to explain to you how that works later. And this is a silky shark in Cuba, first shark satellite tag in Cuba. And we did this on the animals in the water with an in-water technique that was quite unique that we published on later. So the purpose of our work is to study sharks from soup to nuts, as they used to say, but from molecules to whole populations. We've got scientists here who do biomedical studies. You're going to hear from some of our wonderful scientists that work, one of our wonderful scientists who works on rays in the field. We do everything on sharks in order to understand them and to protect them. And in fact, in this day and age, they need a lot of protection. When I started in my career, we worried about shark attack. We don't worry so much about that anymore. Now it's more about people attacking sharks. So thank you for allowing us to come into your homes or to your office today. And Ross, I'll turn it back over to you.
Dr. Huter. Now, as he mentioned, sharks are really important from the food chain as well as just keeping the ecosystem in balance. And you folks are so lucky because not only do we have one shark scientist, we don't have 2 shark scientists, but we have 3 shark scientists joining us today. Now, in case you have any questions, please feel free to type them into our chat box to let us know if there is anything that you would like to know about some of our cartilaginous friends. Now, we've learned a lot about sharks from Dr. Huter, but we're going to meet a senior biologist, Kim Bassos-Hull, who works with a wide array of animals. So can you tell us a little bit more about your flat shark friends?
Oh, sorry.
You're muted on us. Oh, there we go. Fantastic.
Yeah, so hi guys. So I get to tell you about the other sharks, the flat sharks, which are the ray species. And our research at Mote is focusing mostly these days on some of the more pelagic ray species, which are the ones that swim through the water column, such as eagle rays, manta rays, and devil rays. And we're doing some conservation research with them to better understand, because they're a little bit understudied, and to gain more information on them. And as Bob mentioned, we also do international conservation training, and that's part of our plan. But a lot of people ask, how the heck do you catch a big pelagic ray that's swimming through the water? And we have a really great team that's able to see them. So we often will see them swimming through the water. We'll set a net around them and have some divers go in and scoop them up. And we have a very specialized boat. This is a spotted eagle ray, which is our primary focus animal. We're able to bring them up on the boat and do a series of measurements with them, including weighing them. We often have several scientists working collaboratively with us. In the picture in the upper right shows somebody taking a blood sample while another one's taking a skin sample. And we can learn a lot from those as far as nutrition and genetics and population structure. Then the next step is we often will tag the animals and release them. And that's been part of our study, is to learn. We tag with a pit tag, which is a small type of tag that is similar to the chips you put in your dogs. But if we recapture an animal, we will know. We can also put satellite tags on. And the more common type of tag that we're putting on now is an acoustic tag, which is a pinging tag. And that tag, there's a series of underwater receivers all throughout the Gulf of Mexico, and it allows us to get information about where our animals move when they go out of the area that we work. And some of our eagle rays have been detected all the way from the northern Gulf of Mexico down through the Florida Keys and into even one of our rays went all the way to Mexico. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the other ray species that are out there. And so 2 other species that we have been studying are the mobulid rays. So the devil rays. So I don't know if there's a picture you can pop back up of the devil ray picture that you guys had there. Yeah, so these are the smallest of the filter feeding rays. These guys eat tiny little organisms. And the largest species of ray is, of course, our manta ray. And we do get both of these species occasionally on the area right outside of Mote and along the Gulf Coast of Florida. So opportunistically,
Kim, it's amazing that you are working with so many different species and raising awareness on the conservation. Now, you mentioned that you are doing acoustic tags and you're doing some of this really amazing work in the Gulf of Mexico, but I want to make sure we have time to turn it over to our last Jossum presenter today. So welcome Valerie Hagen, who is a staff biologist, who's going to tell us a little bit more and highlight what Kim was mentioning about some of the amazing tracking and tagging that we do here with our sharks at Mote. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, Val?
Yeah, so what we focus on here at Mote mainly, how do you track and tag sharks? So I'm going to be talking about, I have a little show and tell with a bunch of different type of tags. So what Kim was talking about, this is an acoustic tag. They can be inserted internally, or you can attach it to the dorsal fin of a shark. But mostly, I think rays, it's internal tags. And then you can actively track them or passively track them with the receivers that Kim was talking about. And then in this picture with the hammerhead, we are actually attaching satellite tags. So I have here, if you can pop back over to me, a couple of, yeah. So these are pop-up archival tags that they stream behind a shark, and when it's programmed to pop off after a certain amount of days, when it pops off, it sends the data. It records things such as temperature and light, and we can get a lot of useful data out of that. And then we also have here spot tags. This is an old version, and then this is how we've developed it to be more streamlined and a little more convenient for the sharks to have on. And so it basically just sits up on the dorsal fin as high up as it can go. And whenever it sticks up out of the water, because sharks swim at the surface frequently, it'll send a ping to a satellite. And then so we can see the movement that so whenever from when we tag them to when they surface high enough, then we get a couple data points from where they're moving, and it's as they go. And those last for a really long time, actually. I think, and then we have the simple method, which we do a lot of because it's cheapest, it's most fiscally possible. Satellite tags are very expensive, unfortunately. So hopefully one day that type of technology will develop and it'll become a little easier. So we're working on that. But we have mark capture tags.
That's a wonderful transition about what we can do to support marine science and what we do here at Mote. We actually had a question just roll in saying that if you're not a biologist and you don't live near the ocean, how can you support shark science? Well, we're a nonprofit institution, so any financial support is a wonderful way to get some satellite tags on the backs of these sharks. Now, unfortunately, I see that we are starting to run out of time, which is such a huge bummer because we had learned so much about sharks traveling internationally, tracking and tagging, their cousins, rays, and skates. So I think we have time for one last question, and we'll turn it over to Kim. We have a ray question about when rays sting. Do they only do it when they're scared? What is the rationale that a ray would want to sting in the first place?
Right. So the reason that rays have barbs are for protection from predators such as sharks. Oftentimes sharks will try to go in from the back end and bite them, and those barbs are there mostly for sharks. And of course you've heard about, yes, that's a perfect example. Eagle rays have multiple stinging barbs, but some of the more benthic rays are the ones when they talk about doing the stingray shuffle. That's because they hang out on the bottom, and sometimes if somebody steps right on them, that's when they have that natural tendency to want to protect themselves and put their barb out. So it's important if you go in the water to do the stingray shuffle, but for the most part, rays are just trying to move away from the potential chance that they might get eaten by a shark.
Can't wait to get to the point on it, right? Now, unfortunately, we are out of time, which is such a bummer. However, I see so many questions rolling in. So for everyone, I would love that we didn't get to your questions. I would love for you to join us on Flipgrid. Now, Flipgrid is an amazing website resource that we've partnered with, where it's essentially a video voicemail service. So you can ask us a free marine science question, all of these sharks and ray questions we didn't get to today, and then we will respond with a personalized video answer. So consider Dr. Huter, Kim, and Val your marine science pen pals whenever you have any shark-related questions. So I hope to see you on Flipgrid. Now, stick around, too, because we have some amazing programs from some of our AZA partners highlighting shark and ray awareness. So once again, coming to you live from Mote Marine Laboratory, I'm Ross, joined by Dr. Bob Huter, Kim Bassos-Hull, as well as Valerie Hagen. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You're now armed with knowledge, so go out and share some amazing facts you've learned about these jawsome animals. Bye, everyone.
Oh, okay. Looks like we're live, except for Kristen. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this segment on Shark and Ray Day Appreciation. Appreciation Day. I'm Alexa DeLon, and I'm Vice President of Veterinary Services at Mississippi Aquarium. And I'm joined today by 3 of my friends and colleagues who are also shark and ray veterinarians. And we are going to discuss some of our favorite cases, tell you what it's like to be a shark vet, and answer any questions you might have. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see who you are going to be hearing from today. And then we'll go ahead and get started. Feel free to send any questions that you have via chat and we will address them. All right. So we have with us Dr. Natalie, Dr. Shane, Dr. Trey, and I'm going to let each of them tell you what they're doing in this photo and where they work. So we'll just start with Natalie and then go to Shane and then Trey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm a veterinarian at Walt Disney World, and we work at both Animal Kingdom as well as the Seas, which is over at Epcot. And what you see in that photograph is a young bowmouth guitarfish getting her quarantine examination. And so we're doing an ultrasound in there. I'm trying to look at the heart just to make sure everything's going well during that anesthesia.
All right, Shane, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shane Boylan. I'm the chief veterinarian for the South Carolina Aquarium. That's one of our aquarists, Jen Holding. I'm going to guess that's not a sharp-nosed. It's probably one of our browns or sandbar sharks, Carcharodontis plumbeus. And what we're doing is a quarantine exam. And what we like to do is we put our endoscope, the kind of rigid endoscopes that you put in your shoulders when you have some orthoscopic repair. And we go into the gill cavity there. And that's where the parasites like to hide. So that's me staring at a screen, trying not to drop a very expensive piece of equipment in salt water, looking at the gills and looking for any parasites, because it's a lot cheaper to treat parasites in, say, like a few thousand gallons of water than a few 100,000 gallons of water.
All right, Trey.
Hi guys, my name is Dr. Trey Clark, and I'm one of the senior staff veterinarians at SeaWorld San Diego. And this is pretty a cool picture. This is us working out in the field on one of the O-Search boats. If you've seen their program a lot, these are the guys that go out and do research on the great white sharks, which is a really neat, inventive process, how they lift the sharks up from the water. So this is actually an adult, subadult female sand tiger shark that we're working up. We're placing tags on them so we can actually kind of follow their depth and where they go in the world, in the ocean, and kind of get a tag on where their nursery is, and just learn a lot more about them, because unfortunately we still don't know a lot about sharks and their pupping grounds and things like that.
Trey, could you tell people how that shark is able to breathe when it's out of the water?
That's a good question, Alexa. So that shark, so we have at the very end of that picture, we have a large water hose that's pumping water through their gills. These sharks are what's called ram ventilators. So they're actually constantly moving water through their gills, constantly. Obviously, sharks breathe in water, and they are able to suck up the oxygen from the water, and that's how they're breathing. So we have a large tube running water, fresh water through the gills, and that's how the animal's breathing on deck, which is pretty cool.
All right, so let's just go through some cases while we wait for any questions to come in. I think this is Natalie's picture. Do you want to tell us what you're doing here?
Absolutely. So this is one of the projects I was involved with, the Bimini Field Station down in the Bahamas, and they do amazing work with sharks and stingrays. And they invited me to come along to do some ultrasound work. They were trying to understand why these hammerheads migrated down to their area. And they do this annually like clockwork. And so one of our goals was to find out if part of it was a reproductive reason. And they're not coming there to give birth. So there's something about that mid-gestation process that's bringing them there. So we were able to find out that about half of the animals were pregnant, and we're trying to understand a little bit better what their migrations mean in terms of how they go up and down. And they actually end up all the way back up to North Carolina later on in the process. It's a pretty neat project.
So Natalie, when you see the baby sharks on ultrasound, what do they look like? Do they look like miniature versions, or do they look like a little egg? Can you describe it for people who may have not?
I can do my best. Now, in some sharks, they actually do look like little shark versions, and depending on the orientation of your equipment, sometimes they look like that. But in this case, they look like little salmon steaks, kind of that cross section.
Okay.
A lot of them, because these guys have about 50 pups in them.
That's a lot of babies.
A lot.
All right, Shane, I think this was your picture. So can you describe what's going on for people who aren't radiologists?
Absolutely. And of course, I get the sad story. Everyone else gets happy stories. So this is a sand tiger shark. So everyone will probably have seen a sand tiger in an aquarium. They're the sharks that have their teeth stick out. They look real aggressive, but they're actually pretty much like little puppy dogs in aquariums. They're not very aggressive toward turtles or people or anything else. If you're a small fish, that might be another story. But one of the problems with them is they get bad backs, just like all of us. Trey's too young, but I've got a bad back thanks to some leather backs. And this is what happens is your vertebrae basically move out of position. And this is scoliosis. And this is where you kind of get a hunched back. And I think it's pretty obvious that disc, they should be nice all in a long row. And what's happened is the back is, and we don't know why this happens, but we have some ideas about nutritional or handling it capacities, but the disc literally just moved out of place. And in that is your spinal cord. So your brain's kind of in two portions. We're all familiar with your central lobe, your cerebellum, and then your spinal cord is part of your central nervous system, and it's just as important as your brain, or in my case, it's even more important since I don't think I have much of one. And that cord runs down that vertebra, and that cord is now completely pinched. So these animals are uncomfortable and they're had difficulty moving, and this is a CT reconstruction of what's going on in their back. So this is something we try to do very carefully in aquariums. We want to make sure we handle our sharks properly. They've got proper nutrition to try to avoid this. We've done, as an aquarium, as an industry, been doing a lot of research on this to try to avoid this in the future. We're not quite sure if this happens in the wild, but as you can tell, if this does happen in the wild, these poor animals wouldn't live very long. So we try to make sure they're as comfortable as possible, and we're trying to figure out exactly how to prevent this and possibly treat it.
Great. All right, and here's another example of some radiology being used. Do you want to tell us what's going on in this picture, Trey?
So yeah, just like Dr. Boylan was talking about, sand tiger sharks are one of our most charismatic species of sharks that we have in the aquarium industry. And we want to learn as much as we can about them. So this particular animal, I was actually a consultant with Dr. Boylan about this as well. We were just like with any other animals, a dog or cat that you take to the veterinarian, we can do essentially the same stuff with sharks, just maybe a little bit more. You have to think about the logistics a little bit more. So what we're doing right now is we're actually taking x-rays of a shark because we're concerned about his spine. So this guy came down acutely with some spinal trauma that we, once again, aren't really sure the etiology, but we're trying to figure out, doing some more about it. And because of these x-rays, we were able to monitor the severity, first find out the severity of the curvature of the spine, this kyphosis and spondylosis. And so after that, we were able to monitor this animal throughout and seeing if it got worse or better, and trying to make sure to get him to feel much better in the future.
Can you, so on this picture, it looks like you guys are in the water and the shark is floating on top. I've seen people take x-rays in a lot of different ways. Do you like to get in the water with the shark or take him out? Can you describe a few little challenges you may have depending on how you do it? Like, how do you keep your equipment safe like that?
Well, it's a very good question. So for this, we have there's a raised platform in this pool. This is a very large pool. It's about 125,000 gallons, probably about 10 feet deep, but on this one side of it, there's a ledge that we can actually get out on. So that's probably about a 3-foot ledge. We constructed our own little table out there. You can see towels underneath to keep any pressure sores out. That's a grating underneath. So we're able to sedate the shark initially with some injectable meds. And then once he got slower, we were able to grab him and move him into the shallow end of the pool, and then from there we put him in a stretcher, made sure it's safe for everybody, and then once we had him on the stretcher, we were able to lift him up and put him onto the table. If you see at the very end and the business end of the shark, there's also another tube that's constantly pumping fresh water through its gills so the animal can properly ventilate. And then from there, we're taking a portable x-ray unit, and then there's a x-ray plate that we, obviously salt water and electronics don't like to mix, so we covered that x-ray plate with a lot of plastic bagging, and then we were able to take the x-ray shots. We weren't taking it right at this point. We had people move out of the way and protect ourselves with leads and things like that, but yeah, we were able to get them. And I stopped taking x-rays once I start feeling a little bit And you could start to feel a little bit of the shock going through the X-ray machine. So that's when we determined it was time to stop.
Probably
So
good.
sometimes you have to do you have to MacGyver things to work it out in the fish world.
Want to explain the gun show? I don't know if anybody knows, but that unit weighs about 35, 40 pounds, and Trey's holding that over his head, and right now he looks cool, and he's actually sweating profusely in a wetsuit, and his muscles are bulging out right now because probably other than Ryan DeVoe, no other vet can actually hold an X-ray unit that high for that long. That's a gun show for you.
You start shaking, your muscles start shaking. Okay, I'm going to take a break and let's see. We are going to ask a few questions people have asked. So Selena asked, do sharks make good patients? So let's let Natalie answer that question.
Ooh, that's a good question. From which aspect? Because from a compliance aspect, sometimes. So like we have folks who train our sharks to do various things in our rays. And when the animals are trained, it makes things so much easier. Sometimes we can't do that, in which case you have to go and catch them. And in our system, we have a 6 million gallon enclosure with a lot of different species in it. So sometimes they're difficult patients, but not always.
And then this is kind of like a question joke from Johnny. I think he's 15. He asked, when you ultrasound a guitar fish, does it sound like Jimi Hendrix?
In my head.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good joke right there.
It is.
And then Jared asked a question. What advice do each of you have for vet students interested in aquatic animal medicine? He's starting vet school in August. So maybe if you can each give one good piece of advice for them, we'll go down the line. Shane, you want to start?
I would read as much as you can and get involved, whether it's either just from fishing or working with other research projects, because everyone likes a strong back. So if he's young and he wants to carry I carry a lot of heavy gear for a lot of biologists just to show up, you'll get a lot of good experiences that way. And live off your parents as long as you possibly can, because you don't get paid a lot. So either marry rich or live off your parents like a good leech.
Super good advice. Yeah. Win the lottery if you can. Trey, do you have a nugget of wisdom?
Yes. So congrats on getting to vet school. That's awesome. My big thing, and I tell vet students all the time, make sure you learn about everything, right? We use even dog cat medicine. I utilize that every day in the aquarium world. I treat a sea lion the same way I would treat a dog. You can treat a rhino the same way you treat a horse. You treat a giraffe the same way you treat a cow. So knowing those correlations are huge, and being able to take it all in. I use certain aspects that I used in small animal practice when I practice, and in shark medicine all the time. So it's really important that you get the overall experience. Don't kind of limit yourself to just exotics, because you'll use those skills more than you think in the exotic aquarium world.
Probably more than your exotic skills a lot of times.
Yes.
Natalie, what about you?
I would say determination, and like Shane said, be active, get experience and be active. But most importantly, I think being mindful and being nice, because people remember you for those things. Or if you do really bad things, you want to be remembered for all the good things.
That's true. And the field is relatively small compared to other areas of veterinary medicine. So probably good chances are, if you're working with an aquatic vet, they probably know a lot of other aquatic vets. So it's good to make those connections early, and it's good to have positive connections for sure. Okay, I think this is a really interesting question from Carly. Oh, Jared says thank you to everyone. Carly wants to know, can sharks have a C-section, SEA? And they actually can. And Natalie taught me virtually how to do a C-section on a cow nose ray. So do you want to describe briefly how you do a C-section on a cow nose ray?
Oh, sure. While there are a lot of similarities, like having to do things like C-sections, sometimes there are differences in that we've already talked about how you need to maintain water over their gills, and because you're going to have them out of the water, and you're going to do a surgery like you would with anything else. However, the things that you have to worry about are orientation. So with these guys, we don't do them from their belly, we do them from their back. And then the other thing is that their skin, depending on the species, can be very hard to get through. And so some species of rays are harder than others. The cow nose are simpler, but sometimes you really have to work at getting through their skin. So it becomes just a little bit more difficult.
And I think this is a good question to follow that question, because Selena wants to know, how can you tell if sharks or rays are in pain? And I think that's it's a hot topic about fish feeling pain. So let's see, Trey or Shane, do you want to tell us how you can tell if fish are in pain, sharks and rays?
Well, that's a really good question. And it's, fish and sharks don't show pain necessarily like, a dog or cat would. So it's important to know their natural history. It's important to know their behavior. So what I do is I look at the animal in a normal stance. I just kind of every day you can go look at the aquarium and see how the animal normally moves. And then if there's anything different from that, that can mean the animal might be in discomfort or pain. So those are important ways to notice it. And obviously if you're doing anything invasive like surgery, or their animal has large cuts on it, obviously if you get a cut on yourself, that's going to be painful, right? So you can assume that fish feel pain as well. So we'll definitely treat animals for pain management.
So just because we're people, we can communicate and we complain, at least I do all the time. And so you really know when someone's upset. Sharks actually do a very good job of, actually all animals do, of indicating their behavior. We just don't, as a human, appreciate it. So if you've ever been diving or snorkeling with a shark and it's swimming around like I do, I follow them. I like to make sure they don't follow me, I follow them. They'll actually show some behavior patterns and they'll take off. But if a shark's hunching its back and shoving its pectoral fins down, that's a kind of a threatening, a warning position. You'll see that on Shark Week. But watch your shark swimming, as Trey mentioned, but the way the pec fins go down, and in captivity, diet. If they're not eating, and sharks don't eat every day, but when they're off their regular diet. Also, when you have a diver in the tank and the shark swims away, they'll bolt away. If they favor a side, they don't turn as well as they used to. If they lose their buoyancy, they may tilt. If they're not compensating. So remember, all animals in wildlife don't want to show weakness, because their mom's not going to come up and kiss them on the knee and make it better. Not like Natalie or Alexa. So they want to hide their symptoms because the next bigger animal will probably turn them into a meal. So when you introduce a stressor or the shark swimming a little irregularly, they'll give away that they're not doing as well as they used to be. And everything else Trey just said. But I just want to make a note for bird, cat, or dog, or whatever. They are indicating what they're going through. We just have to be smart enough to realize what they're indicating. We don't take the time. We just don't appreciate their level of communication sometimes.
It can be super subtle at times, like just a very tiny little thing that you might not notice. Okay. Let's see. You guys are asking excellent questions and we're getting really good answers out of our vet friends here. Let's see. I want to ask you all a question. And it looks like, I'm going to ask you this, Shane, because we've already seen Trey and Natalie out in the field. We didn't see a picture of you out in the field yet. So we know you treat all of the sharks and rays at South Carolina Aquarium. But in my opinion, one of the fun things about being an aquatic vet is also going out to the ocean and seeing them out there. So do you get to do that in your job? And is it something you like, or do you like to treat the ones in your aquarium better?
I don't get to go every time OSearch comes and invites me. I have a family catastrophe, so I'm not as good as Trey. They're very nice. They always invite me, but I always have a catastrophe. What I do is we collect our own sharks. So when our staff go out, or I go with them and we go fishing. So we'll go out and we'll collect them. And my job is really, if there's a hook wound, if they're going through stress, we'll draw a little blood. We'll try to figure out what's going on and make sure the water's well oxygenated. And yeah, it's way more fun to see sharks in their natural environment. It's way more fun to be outdoors. So anytime I can, I'd rather be outside, because that's where you pick up those normal behaviors. And since I work on a lot of wildlife also, it's important to see what's going on in the natural environment. The water temp, just things that we don't appreciate. The aquarists will bring it in and they'll say, what was the water temp? And you see the look of they're not sure. So when you're bringing it inside, they may be drastically changing by 5 or 6 degrees. And since we're warm-blooded, we don't really appreciate it. And we can't handle, when you hop in the bath, it's like 80 degrees, you think it's freezing. For a shark temperature, the water changes 5 or 6 degrees, it can completely shut down their physiology. So it's those little things I enjoy, being out in the field to make sure that when they come back to the aquarium, I can make account for those things and make the sharks happier and healthier.
Awesome. Let's see. People always ask me this question, so I'm going to ask it of you all. what is your favorite elasmobranch? And for those of you listening, an elasmobranch is a shark, a skate, or a ray. So do you have a favorite one? I'll tell you what mine is so that you can copy me if you want to. My favorites are rays in general, and I love spotted eagle rays and manta rays. So Trey, what's your favorite?
Oh, that's a good question. Whatever's not pissing me off at the time.
Children, language.
Yeah. I would say I really enjoy black tip reef sharks. They're really cool sharks. They're little bulldogs of the sea. I like how compact they are, and yeah, they're really neat to work on.
What about you, Natalie?
Oh, I can't narrow it down. That's why I do what I do, because I like so many things. Hammerheads, zebra sharks, black blotched rays. I think those are my top 3. Is that okay?
What about you, Shane?
Cow-nosed rays, because they're like little puppies that just suck on your calves when you swim with them.
The cow-nosed rays. They always look like they're happy too. Okay, let's see. We have a few more questions. So I know we had other pictures, but I like to answer people's questions because they're on listening to us. So Gabriel, who's 12, wants to know the biggest shark you have ever treated. For me, the biggest one I've treated is a whale shark.
Alexa wins.
Do we leave the mic and we just drop it just because she wins?
No. What's yours, Trey?
I did a very large female sand tiger shark. It was probably about 8 feet. I think she's about close to 300, but you beat me by a long shot.
Not a competition.
Yeah.
What about you, Natalie?
Ray would be black blotched. So she was 500 pounds. And sand tiger after that, he was 90 kilos, so 200 pounds. That's not the wild. The wild ones I can't weigh, so I don't know.
What about you, Shane?
Same thing, big sand tigers and nurse sharks, a couple 100 pounds, nothing exciting like a whale shark.
It's all right. It's all right. I mean, the little ones are awesome too, right? They're all awesome. Small but mighty. Let's see. MJ has a question, and I think I need a little more clarification. So if MJ's still listening, he's asking, do you have any quick tips for pregnancy ultrasounds and rays? And there's not, I mean, a quick tip, I guess, would be to look on the back, because a lot of people would think you'd look on the belly. But let's see. You guys have any
spiral colon on one side, uterus on the other, and look for tacos. If you got a taco and the taco has a heartbeat, you got a baby ray.
Like they're flapping.
It's up, and then right in the middle is a little boop, 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 boop.
Water is a beautiful conductor. You can do it without even touching the stingray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think knowing the anatomy, if you know what your species is, get a general notion of what their anatomy is, because they can have one ovary or 2, one uterus or 2, and if you know, that'll kind of help guide you to where to look.
And then you've got like sawfish. It might be a male phenotypically, but you get internally, they're both male and female. They actually have some representative tissues. So what's fun about doing elasmobranchs, fish in general can be, they can change genders. You can have, like your clownfish, everybody has Nemo. But some of the weird elasmobranchs are so old that they can throw you for a loop even on the anatomy. So they're fun that way. They can always surprise you.
Always a challenge for sure. Let's see. We are definitely past our 15 minutes, so I guess we should cut ourselves off. But I just want to thank everyone for tuning in and learning more about sharks and rays. I think it's pretty obvious that we love them and we love to take care of them. So, no follow-up from MJ, so he's good with that. So we really appreciate everyone listening in, and visit your local aquarium, see the sharks and rays, and become shark and ray advocates just like we are. Thank you, Shane, Natalie, and Trey for joining me. These 3 are really good shark vets and mentors, help me out of a lot of jams. We always learn from one another. So collaborate with your friends and your colleagues, and we'll make everything better for sharks and rays as much as we can. Thanks for tuning in. See ya. Hi all. Let me share my screen real fast. I guess we end. I don't know. Oh, there it
Trey
is.
said the dirty word and I didn't.
I know, right?
Got it.
Just stepping here for a moment.
Preparing to go live.
All right. Stepping here for a moment. All right.
Preparing to go live.
All right. Stepping here for a moment.
Preparing to go live.
Eric, you are live. Debbie, if you
All
want
right.
to hit mute on the on your YouTube because it's showing up.
Feel like a reporter if I do this. If we're ready for me to go live, then I think it's time to welcome everyone to Sharks and Ray. I knew I was going to go there. Awareness Day and Appreciation Day, as we are coming to you from the Florida Aquarium. And it's not just any Shark and Ray Appreciation Day, it's the AZA, the American Association of Zoos and Aquariums, of which the Florida Aquarium is a proud member, along with hundreds of aquariums and zoos across the country and Canada. And we are here to celebrate sharks and rays. That's right, sharks, both round and flat, from, well, really from head to toe. It's rare that I am taking off my mask, but I'm social distance here, and then some. And when I say head to toe, I mean head to toe. That's right, bring out the whale shark feet, because we're going to talk about some exciting experiences you can have here at the Florida Aquarium. Not just exciting, but innovative. And I think maybe it's important, first off, to talk about sharks as a whole. First off, you probably heard this from some of my other colleagues and good buddies earlier today, that there are several hundred species of both sharks and rays. And they do face a lot of threats out in the ocean. It's tough to be a shark. Now, it's not just enough that their environment is changing. It might be a little warmer than it used to be, or polluted. It's a tough environment to be a happy and healthy shark or ray of any size. And as well, there are a lot of pressures on sharks and rays in that they are collected for their food value and sometimes even for the fins. And as a result of that, we may see some imbalance in the environment. And also, let's not forget that sharks tend to get kind of the bad story. But we have an opportunity here at the Florida Aquarium to tell the good stories about sharks and rays, some fantastic stories. I love to tell those stories. And we also have an opportunity to get people to think a different way about sharks. And we started this at least 20 years ago when we changed up our dive program. Is to get into the water, dive with our sharks. And when there's a shark involved, well, everybody understands you've got to have a cage, right? It would just be crazy to dive in the water without sharks. But we wanted to show people that that wasn't crazy at all. So back in 2001, we changed up the format of our Dive with Sharks program. And our divers, like biologists and our marine operations professionals, would get in the water and get out of the cage and show people that it wasn't as dangerous as the movies like Jaws that portrayed sharks to be. It's hard to tell a different story about sharks because, when somebody asked me one time, Eric, why sharks? Why do you want to tell the story of sharks? I said, because everybody already loves dolphins. And who doesn't? Dolphins and whales. And those also are animals that faced a much tougher fate in the United States, maybe even just 100 years ago. We didn't really think of them as lovable, caring animals, but maybe just as a resource. We want to change the narrative for sharks too. And that's why days like Sharks and Rays Awareness Day are so important. Well, back then we changed up our dive program. We showed people on the other side of the window what it was like to dive with sharks outside of the cage. I like to think we took their fears and changed them into fascination. And it's really a fantastic opportunity, but we felt like maybe we were just hogging all the fun to ourselves. Why should we be the only ones to dive with sharks? Now, there were opportunities around the country to get in the water with sharks, but you're always inside a cage or on the other side of a window. That's not nearly as exciting and fun as we can experience. We wanted to bring our guests along for the ride. And that's why back in 2002, we started a program I'm going to talk about here today called our Dive with the Sharks program. That's right, no nonsense naming. It's right there in the name, Dive with the Sharks. And we invite our guests that are scuba certified, 15 years old, to come on in and don traditional dive gear, like you might see right over my shoulder there on the back rack. And in fact, this is the area all around me where we have that dive with the shark. But what's going on, Eric? It looks like you're inside a cage. It really does. I should probably take a step back or a step forward in this case and explain what's going on over here. The Florida Aquarium is always progressing. And after 25 years, which I've been a proud member of the team the entire time, because I started when I was 11. In any case, we are making some upgrades here. We needed to refabricate the rooftop over the top of our biggest 500,000 gallon coral reef habitat, which is also the home to our sharks, our rays, our turtles, our eels. We can go on and on. Florida coral reef wildlife, hundreds of animals in this 500,000 gallon habitat. And some of those animals are people right now doing some diving activities. But we had to replace the top, but why just get a new roof when we are in the sunshine state? So not only do we help corals and appreciate the sunshine that gives their lives purpose and meaning and possibility, but we decided to grab a little of that sunshine for ourselves, and we are putting a full solar array up here. So I apologize in advance for any hammering and banging, but know that it is for a very good cause. It is not just protecting our reef animals, allowing them some of the natural sunlight that's so important to them to grow healthy algae for those herbivores, but also it helps cut back on the sun and produce energy for us here at the aquarium. All right, all that's out of the way. Let's have a look over here at what diving with the sharks can be like. So I'm gonna take you on a little bit of tour. We got to walk around some of this scaffolding, and there's some areas where we won't go because it's a construction zone. I'm not wearing my hard hat. But if you look over my shoulder right now, you'll see pretty traditional dive gear that is used with our Dive with the Sharks program. And I have to testify for some of the folks that can't be with us here right now because, well, it's going to be a while before perhaps our volunteers can come right on back, or some of those guests that have had our Dive with the Shark experience. But I can remember the stories that they would tell. And in fact, just personally, I brought my nieces here and gave them a surprise. And oh my gosh, they're so much older now. They are young women and moved on with their lives. But when they were young and teenagers and maybe just about 20 or so, I brought them here after they got scuba certified and gave them an opportunity to dive with the sharks. And the youngest niece, when I surprised her, said, "We're going to dive with the sharks." And the oldest niece said, "We're going to dive with the sharks." Well, that's exactly the kind of challenge we love here at the Florida Aquarium, because you know what? You're going to dive with a Divemaster in a safe environment where you always have the best visibility, you have the most advanced dive gear, and you have the best professionals, like some of the dive masters that you see in the background here, like Shannon waving over there, being socially responsible and wearing that fantastic flat shark mask. That's right, stingrays. And also our Michael here, also on marine operations, they maintain our gear, make sure that our divers also accompany them into the water, have a safe scuba diving experience. And I have to say, it was like nothing else in the country. And since then, since 2002 now, almost 20 years, we have impacted over 12,000 divers that have gotten into the water and experience our Dive with the Shark program. But it doesn't just stop there, because on the other side of that 12-inch thick acrylic window, we've had millions of guests come through our doors and watch divers in the water with sharks, which for them may have not made a lot of sense at first. But once they see that experience and how positive and fun and sensational it can be, then it's a little easier to tell those positive stories about sharks, how they've got a tough life in the wild, the impacts that mankind can have on sharks, but also ways that we can help. Just from managing our waste to choosing sustainable seafood options. A couple of things like that can make a huge difference to the lives of sharks and rays around the world. And I have to say, when I see even just my nieces get out of the water, and they are both completely, overwhelmingly in love with sharks after this experience, it changed the whole perspective. The youngest niece, she was already on board, but my older niece, Liz, and then I'm talking about Rachel as my younger, they were both so jazzed by the experience, I knew that I had to get more people involved with Dive with the Sharks. I've had guests come and visit us that, for example, where one of my buddies, Michael, who is one of the hosts of our morning show, and I would go on a lot to talk about sharks, and he was one of the former Buccaneers. This is a big, tough, strong, athletic guy. He's afraid of nothing, apparently. One thing he might be afraid of was diving with sharks. So I kept twisting his arm, get him to dive with the sharks, but we didn't have an opportunity yet for people to swim with the sharks that weren't scuba divers. So about 5 years ago, our brilliant minds in marine operations came up with the idea of how can we safely get guests in the water that aren't scuba divers, but still want to have that up close, wet, and personal experience, a positive, life-changing experience with sharks. And they came up with, here comes the obvious naming again, swim with the sharks. That's right. Shannon, if you would show us how the swim with the shark experience is a little different from the dive with the sharks, what she's putting on there looks like a set of dive gear. And for all intents and purposes, it is without the dive part. Because what she's wearing there is buoyant, positively buoyant, and it's going to give her an opportunity. Make sure we got her in view. Let's see. I think so. Yeah, can everybody see Shannon? Yeah, I believe. I'll get up here to make sure. That little scuba tank on the front is connected to a regulator like you would use if you're a scuba diver, but you remain on the surface, again, with a safety diver, and you cruise around on the surface of the habitat over here. Let's look all the way over here. You start in the shallow side. There goes one of our flat sharks now, one of our southern rays. And then you'll make your way over through the exam corral and the rallying area over to the deep side. I'm going to walk over that way. Again, check it out. It's basically scuba gear that you can swim at the surface with. So no snorkels to get all fouled up and complicated. You just drift and relax and have the time of your life. And there's where I've had the opportunity to share that experience with sometimes saying everywhere from Michael, who was a big, tough athlete. And when we were walking up to the experience and his wife and the kids here, and I was so excited for him, and he was very excited too, to get in right down here into this 500,000-gallon habitat with 7, 8, 9 foot long sand tiger sharks and nurse sharks, plus barracuda, as long as I am tall, and I'm pretty tall, and as well as all the other creatures in here. And he was walking up with me in his wetsuit, and he said, Eric, I'm sweating. And I said, I know, I'm sweating too. He's like, no, I'm sweating. It's like, that's okay, I'm gonna be right next to you. We're gonna have the best time. And he did. And we brought another one over to the good side of shark stories. And that makes me so excited to have that opportunity, not to mention the opportunities I've had with my friend Sky. And life hasn't always been right to some of the best people I've ever known, but we've had an opportunity here to maybe make one day a little better than some of the others. And to be able to bring a new friend in and experience total weightlessness and freedom in the water, when maybe every day is a little harder than that, then we've really been able to, again, change minds. She already loves sharks and animals, and that just makes my heart huge, like the Grinch. It just swells with the pride that I have in experiencing diving and swimming with sharks with thousands of guests. And in fact, in 5 years, we've had about 10,000 guests swim with our sharks. You can see that program is bonkers popular. And it's an opportunity for really anyone from little squirts right on up to the grandparents to get into the water, bring your swimsuit, we'll provide the rest, and get you to have an experience of your life diving and swimming with sharks. It could really change those hearts and minds of people all around the world. How are we doing from the other side here? Do we have any questions? I would love to hear what people think and would like to know more about our experiences.
Yes. We have a few questions. Can you hear me?
Bring them on.
Okay.
Take a breath. Yes, I can hear you. Great.
So Lindsay asks, what are some ways the average person, a non-marine biologist, can get more hands-on involvement in shark conservation other than just spreading awareness?
Oh boy, that's fantastic. And you're already on the right track. Spreading awareness and sharing the stories, the tales, the heads and the tails of sharks is a really important step. Tell these great stories the next time you get together. And I know times are different now, but there will be a time when we're all sitting around the Thanksgiving table again and share those stories. But also, I just did, for example, this last weekend, the Florida Aquarium had a volunteer effort and team member effort to go out to one of my buddies, Erica Moulton out there, Erica, and her buddy Sean, my buddy Sean, her husband and buddy. We had the opportunity to help protect our shorelines by outplanting 550 propagules. That's the green bean size looking seed from mangroves. Mangroves that started as tiny propagules 25 years ago in our forest. Can you see that big glass dome behind me there? I know you can because I'm tall. There is a forest of mangroves in there that is producing its own offspring, and we outplanted those with the help of our fantastic team of volunteers, and you could be one of those volunteers in the future too. Now, how is that helping sharks? Well, we're protecting shoreline. We're creating habitat for the bottom, the trophic levels, the producers like the mangroves, and also it's protecting shoreline. When you go to the beach, to make sure the beach is still there when you get back, and also to create a fantastic habitat, which also condenses and and I should say stores carbon and waste. It clarifies the water, and it produces a nursery and home for those little fish that grow to bigger fish that big sharks like to eat. If you're helping clean up those beaches, which I did too, I filled up a gunny sack like a bad Santa full of garbage that I pulled out of the mangroves, and I made that habitat more habitable for all the animals that are so important to our oceans. Because when you help our oceans, you help sharks. And when you help our sharks, you help our oceans, from the coral reefs to the Arctic. Join the cleanup. That's the easy one. Volunteer at an organization near you and support those organizations, those zoos and aquariums that are helping spread the message. Look onto the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums here in America, to find out where your closest AZA zoo or aquarium is, or Google it. How about other questions? That was one.
Colton, age 7, is wondering how long do whale sharks get, and do they mind divers being around them?
Oh, wow, what a great question. Whale sharks. As you can tell, I am, again, a fan of whale sharks and all sharks. And what a beautiful shark they are. The largest shark, the largest fish in the history of fishes. And we get to live on a planet with those beautiful whale sharks. Now, we know, we can confirm that they easily get up to 30 feet long. Let's just think about that. That is probably at least over 2, like that big silver kind of flying saucer looking over there. But let's go beyond that to 45 feet, which takes us well over. Well, let's look at Topher over there. As he's walking away, he could be the head of a Rhynchodon, and I could be the tail of that whale shark. 45 feet is not unheard of and is confirmed, and perhaps even more. Because these are big oceans and big ocean dwellers. We don't know a lot about them yet. We don't know where they reproduce. They have little shark babies called pups, and yet they're big babies. We have a lot to learn about these beautiful spotted plankton-eating sharks. And they do get large, and we think they also live a pretty long time. We're still learning that they could live several decades.
All right, another question.
Yes,
what diving certifications should you focus on to dive with sharks? Is a Aadi open water certification enough, or is Divemaster recommended?
I think you are right on track. A PADI or a NAUI or an SSI or any of the well-recognized, especially internationally recognized, because once you start diving, you're not going to want to stay in your backyard. Even here in Florida, where there's fantastic diving, I can just attest to the fact that I dove with my open water dive certificate. I think I started with PADI. I got an open water to get my skill set up, which is important if you want to go a little further offshore and a little deeper and start hitting those 80 to 130 foot sport diving limits. Now, even with my technical diving training that lets me go almost double that and lets me do a lot more diving, I can still dive the world and have fantastic experiences as even a basic diver, diving, I think, down to about 80 feet, which is a lot of ocean to see. But as an open water diver, you build a little bit more skill set. Highly encourage it. PADI, NAUI in particular is a sponsor here of the Florida Aquarium. Got to give them a shout out because they are fantastic. But PADI, NAUI, SSI, I think SSI is still a thing. You might have to look some of those up. Most of my certifications I've had for years, if not decades. And as somebody who dove internationally just recently with the biggest and flattest shark of them all, giant oceanic manta rays, 25 feet across. That's like a school bus. And it blew my mind to be floating in the open blue water while a manta ray came as far as I can reach my arm out, basically right up to my other arm here, maybe a couple meters away. In fact, that manta was social distancing before it was cool. And he was enormous, and he was one of 4. So I'm excited about it. And I already know a good bit about sharks and rays. I know it'll blow your mind. I highly encourage you to take up the fantastic sport of scuba diving. And all you need here is a basic certification to join us in our Dive with the Sharks program and take a splash and get to know the sharks up wet and personal.
Well, that's a great segue into another question from Jennifer. Is the Dive with Sharks program safe? Couldn't the sharks maybe accidentally bite someone? Can you talk about the safety of the program?
Safety is so important here at the Florida Aquarium. And in fact, it starts at the front door. And right now, especially, that means that everybody's wearing their mask. Look at this mask my niece Rachel made me. It is out of this world, but it's hard to hear me through it sometimes. So I'm wearing it here and I'm keeping my distance. So that said, safety is always job one. We're all checked as we come in the door to make sure we're safe to be around the people that do come and visit. And then when we're diving with the sharks, well, biologists and our animal care staff and our animal health staff and our marine ops, we have always understood important safety measures when it comes to working with animals, because animals don't always read the rule book. So we need to know those rules and those parameters and have their health and our health and safety as our ultimate goal. And then we're gonna have a great time getting to know them too. We have experienced and expert dive masters that will join our swimmers and our divers in the water. We realize that that is the home and habitat of not just our sharks, but our turtle Flip, who is the queen bee of this 500,000 gallon habitat. Nobody gets in her way because nobody's in her way because she'll just flip on through. And we always give them a wide berth. We're there to share the experience and we're guests in their home. And we always look at it that way. And as a result, the sharks, the turtles, the barracudas, the fish, the eels, all of those are fish too, except the turtle, all respect that space as well. And we respect theirs, and we've never had any kind of an incident involving the animals. And I've been here the whole time, so that's true. You can bet on it. And it is a very safe and very fun and very relaxing experience. Again, from 15 years on up for diving, bring that C card. And then from, I believe, it's like medium size, I want to say 6 little kids on up to grand folks in any age can do our swim with the sharks program too. And swim with the fish if you're not ready to dive with those big sharks yet.
Awesome. And we have one last question, a compliment first.
All right, bring it on.
Matt says
who's
your
this from?
mustache is absolutely magnificent. And then he would like
it's
to
the
know.
First time it has seen the sun in about 3 or 4 or 5 months. I didn't even wax it today because I feel like Icarus. I'm a little too close to the sun and it would just melt away. So yeah, I'm kind of going wild and woolly. This is my premier natural stash. What's that? Award-winning stash? Well, that's true too. But go ahead. What's that question?
Yes, Matt would also like to know, what is your favorite shark species? And I think that's a great question to end on because it's a fun one.
Oh, I love this question because you know what? It's changed a lot over the years. My favorite shark, even when I was just a kid and I saw Jaws, maybe it was like, my favorite shark was my sister pretending to be Jaws and scaring the daylights out of me in the swimming pool. Stop it, Sandy. But it has grown to encompass knowing that there are way more shark species than the ones, those movie monster versions that they show you in the movies, which again, it's just a movie. But when I did get to see a great white in the wild, now about 2.5 years ago, and I met Lucy, and I'll probably get emotional here because my mom's name too, but seeing a minivan sized shark that's 18 feet long and as thick as a minivan with a dorsal fin on it. She's all scarred up and scraped. And again, came about this close to me. Now that time I was in Guadalupe Island, and we are required to be in a cage, I think for the shark's protection, because I would have hugged her. And you know what? I need to ask permission. But seeing that great white really blew my mind. It was my first. I saw probably a dozen more, but she is one of the infamous great whites, a big, beautiful 18 feet of huggable, but don't do it anyway, great white shark. But there's others that are favorites, sharks that you probably have never heard of, like the Greenland shark. The Greenland shark lives in the Arctic, and here's why it is the most Viking of sharks. It lives in sub-freezing temperatures, but its blood has enough urea and other natural components in it to resist freezing. So in other words, it's got built-in natural antifreeze. It doesn't even need to see because little parasites are living on its eyes like forks and are eating away, and they're called copepods. And you and I wouldn't appreciate that. But you know what? Sharks have a great sense of smell. So eyesight's overrated when you live in deep, dark, perhaps murky waters. I'm gonna mention it was really, really cold. Now, they can still find prey items of large proportion. In fact, these sharks get about the size of great whites, but nobody ever thinks about them because you don't go swimming in 38-degree water or colder. In that, they're also eating large prey items like seals that they may even sneak up on the bottom because they swim about this fast. But they don't have to be fast when they're stealthy. They use the senses that they have in their electroreception, their sense of smell, and sometimes even ingesting carcasses of moose. Now, did this shark jump out of the water and grab a moose? I would say probably moose. But he may have found that carcass near the water's edge and scavenged on it. Sharks can be pretty creative when it comes to hungry time sometimes. And I haven't even got to the best part about Greenland sharks yet. Not only do they rock the Arctic, do they not need their vision to hunt, do they get enormous to 25 feet or so, 20 to 25 feet, but, or I should say 15 to 20, they get big, but they can live for Centuries. That's right. It feels like centuries have gone by since March. But these Greenland sharks, we have new and modern science that we can use, carbon dating and radioactivity. And I'm not going to go into it, but basically we can tell that a shark that we thought maybe got 100 years old is getting an average of perhaps 250 to upwards of 400 or 500 years old. That is absolutely one of my favorite sharks, the Greenland shark, because it just rocks your mind when you think of a shark and you hear about an animal like that. It's one of 400 to 500 species and counting, and flat sharks too, Rays.
Awesome. We have time for one more question, actually. So I know I said the other one was the last one, but we have one more from Colton, who is 7. And he asks, what is the largest shark you have in your tank?
Oh, the largest shark that we have here at the Florida Aquarium is our sand tiger shark. And I've known him since he was a smaller shark, but he's grown very slowly as they mature. And he's right at about 2 meters plus, or about 7 feet long. Now that's a shark that's also about as big around as I am, about 200 pounds or so, or about 100, I wanted to say liters, 100 kilos. And he's a good sized animal. But once again, that's one of our larger sharks. Our nurse shark is catching right up on him though. Charlie came to us just a little over 1 meter long, or a little over a yard, and he's almost doubled that size in the, oh gosh, I lose track of time after 25 years. Let's just say he's been here about 5 or 10 years. Yes, and growing ever as a good shark should. And all the animals. I'm really excited to have these sharks and fish and different animals in my life for the past 25 years. It's been fantastic to watch the mangrove forest grow, watch the Tampa Bay area grow, and watch the guests come in here and grow their whole experience diving and swimming with sharks. Even if we're in construction mode and the world's a little different right now, we welcome you here, and we're so appreciative of everybody that's helping us celebrate sharks and rays today, helping us become aware, tell their stories, pitch in a little where you can, and always stay curious and never give up on these beautiful creatures. And thank you to the AZA, the American Association of Zoos and Aquariums, for making this all possible. Thank you to the Florida Aquarium for keeping me around.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we are going to share a last slide to tell everyone the next speaker, and then we will end the live. Thank you so much for your time, Eric.
It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk about sharks and rays. So long, everybody. This is the face I make, been waiting, see if I'm still alive. Oof, let me do this up. All right. I apologize for nothing.
So welcome to Shark and Ray Awareness Day Live, presented by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums and the SAFE Conservation Program. So SAFE stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. It is a collaborative program from AZA Zoos and Aquariums, as well as their conservation partners, that is designed to leverage the collective experience of our 230 plus institutions and the broad platform provided by our 200 million annual visitors. So today we're hosting 8 live interviews about sharks and rays and their conservation. And at the end of each interview, we will be answering questions. So please add them to the chat so that we have them for us to answer. And you can also see our full schedule for today in the description under the YouTube video that you're watching right now. So I guess we'll get started. So I'll actually introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Jennifer Limgaris-Meyer, and I work at Jenkinson's Aquarium, which is one of those AZA facilities here in New Jersey. And I'm here with Taylor.
Hi, my name is Taylor Hartle. I also obviously work here with Jen at Jenkinson's.
So today, I think Taylor is going to ask a couple of questions. Hopefully I'll be able to answer some of them. And again, then answer questions from you as far as what we can do moving forward to help sharks and help shark conservation. So
So I think first, just if you want to just explain to them about what exactly you do at the aquarium.
Okay. So we all wear many hats here in our facility. So I do all sorts of things, from being an animal keeper to being a diver. And one of the big roles that I do is conservation education. And then I also do some advocacy and some political outreach. I've kind of become a little bit of an unofficial liaison in kind of the policy department for the facility here. So kind of work with different organizations, try to coordinate with them on those topics, and try to hopefully get viewers and visitors involved with them as well.
Okay, so the politics and advocating, you want to elaborate a little bit more on that for us?
Sure. So most people hear the term politics and we shut down. Politics, I think, can be kind of a little bit overwhelming. So what we really focus on is working with other conservation groups. So here in New Jersey, we work with something called Cleanish in Action, as well as the Littoral Society. And actually, a few years back, I attended some advocacy training through the Healthy Oceans Coalition, so that I'm able to kind of learn the skills that will hopefully help me as a citizen, as well as me as an aquarium worker, influence things like policies and kind of laws that can be put into place to protect these animals.
All right, so sounds a little complicated even for me who knows about it, but what does that mean for an everyday average citizen that might not necessarily have a biology background?
Excellent question. So our goal here is to kind of take all of these complicated topics and make them really accessible. We don't expect that the person coming in the door, or even you guys at home watching, might necessarily have a political science background, or even really kind of know where to start when we're talking about things like policies and laws and regulations. So what we try to do is kind of take these really complicated things, these really complicated processes, and streamline them down, make them really accessible. We want to be able to just kind of tell you when you come in, this is the issue at hand, this is what we can do to affect change. And then these are kind of some of the ways we can move those laws and regulations forward.
All right, so where do you begin? So where do we start? Yeah,
how do we start the process?
Yeah, what's your first start?
Okay, so to kind of get into this, we have to get a little bit of a history lesson. So I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember Mr. Bill sitting on Capitol Hill, but there was this great animation about how bills become laws. So we're going to go over that real quick. So the way that the laws that we have to follow come into play is a representative for the House of Representatives or a senator will pose a bill. They'll say, we want this to become a law. Now, it gets a little complicated after that. So that bill has to pass both through the House and through the Senate, and the bills that come out the other side have to be identical. Now, once they go into the House or the Senate, they're usually sent to a committee, and then they're usually sent to a subcommittee, and then maybe another committee, and then maybe another subcommittee. And that happens many, many times. And eventually, if everybody agrees on it, the bill will come out of these committees and go back to the floor of either the House or the Senate, and those representatives will vote on it. Now, if both sides agree, if the House of Representatives agree and the Senate agrees, those bills get put onto the president, and the president can either sign them into law or veto them. So you can imagine why we don't have bills coming out every day of the week. These are really long processes. They take a really long time. So where we start is we start at the beginning and we look at bills that are being posed. By the way, right now there's like 17,000 of them. So this is not a small feat. So we'll kind of go and take a look at these bills. We'll find out ones that are really good for conservation, ones that we think are addressing a big conservation problem. And we'll look through them, we'll read through them, we'll understand them. We may turn to some of our other groups like Cleanish in Actions if we have a question about them. And then we come up with a summary of what this bill is. And what we'll do then is once we get to that point, we can kind of move forward with simplifying that to you guys out in the public. So it's time to wake up, by the way, after that question, because we're still going to talk about policy.
So that does seem like a lot to follow. So how do you feel this could help our shark conservation?
That's another great question.
I'm full of them today.
I love this. So something to think about is, I know that the process that we just talked about seems really overwhelming and complicated, but what we've learned is that there are some really specific times when the public can get involved and be really effective at getting bills through Congress. So you don't necessarily need to track a bill through all these committees and subcommittees and all this craziness. When a bill is getting ready to be voted on by the whole House of Representatives or the whole Senate, the few days leading up to that can be really important. And what we ask is, and what we do for ourselves, is we find that if you reach out to your representatives during those days, you can give them a phone call, you can write them a letter. These are things that really don't take much time at all to do. But we find that you're going to have their ear. They're going to listen a lot more readily to your kind of input and your requests in those days leading up to it. So a big part of what we do is we take all that crazy history lesson that we just talked about. We find the bills, we summarize them, and then we let people know when those really important days are coming up. So we'll kind of say, hey guys, this day is when they're voting on it. We want to call over the next couple of days. This is how you would go about doing so. And we found that by getting people in at the right time, then it allows the busy everyday person to take part in these really big, important conservation actions without having to spend the whole day doing research about where the bill is and which subcommittee it's on. Yeah, so we find that that's a great way to get people involved and kind of at least let their voices be heard.
And of the topic for today, this is where we can slide right into taking all of that and kind of putting it towards shark conservation in specific.
Absolutely. So shark conservation specifically is a really challenging topic. So as you guys might have learned through some of the earlier sessions as well, you know, sharks are a global animal. We find species throughout almost all of our world's oceans. They cross boundaries. They're not just in the United States, but they're also kind of global. So how in the world can we address that when we're just here, say for me, I'm in New Jersey, how do I address that when I'm here at home? And I think that one of the biggest ways that we can do that is by making sure these laws and these regulations get put into place. Because I myself am not going to be the one necessarily who's able to stop somebody from poaching an animal. However, when the regulations are in place, then there are organizations out there that can do that. So even just by taking simple actions like at home, in our local government, supporting bills that go through our state government, that go through our communities at that level, I can actually help laws get put into place that will then help these animals on a much broader scale, kind of than where we're at right now. So, you know, a regulation and policy is going to be one of the most powerful tools that we have really to implement true conservation, I think, in the shark populations worldwide. Yeah.
So I know a lot of people, sometimes they hear the word politics or policy and they just get really turned off by it. So what would you say to people that just find it very unappealing?
Yes, I would say give it a shot. You know, one thing I've learned is that it can be incredibly empowering to be a part of this type of advocacy. So I can tell you a perfect example of something that happened here in our state. We worked with many conservation organizations on this issue. They did a ton of the hard work. We really were just there kind of to advocate for it. But an action was proposed here in New Jersey to do exploration for offshore oil and gas industries. And the science didn't really back up what they wanted to do. So there were a lot of conservation organizations that kind of came out and said, hey, we really don't want to do this. And what we were able to do is we actually wrote letters to the governing bodies that were making these decisions. We spoke out against them. We made phone calls to our representatives. And the governor here in our state started the process by restricting any kind of this like gas and oil work within our state waters, which was 3 miles out. So that was the first step. And wouldn't you know it, probably about a year after that, the president actually opted not to continue along the path of offshore oil and gas exploration. You know, so you had all of these voices come together. Now, my actual investment I took maybe a couple hours here and there to maybe go advocate or make a phone call or write a letter. It got me involved in the process without necessarily having to be my full-time job. And it was very exciting when these things actually came into play. I mean, here we were, just everyday citizens advocating and actually getting to see change happen in a really positive way. And this is a big step for shark conservation. We have a really healthy shark population here in New Jersey. It could have affected our fisheries, our ecosystem, even our beaches, which people come to swim. So getting to be a part of that was really exciting. And the phone call took 30 seconds, writing a letter maybe took 10 minutes. The cool thing is actually AZA on their website has a really great way that you can get involved in advocacy, which is actually even easier than that. So if you go online to AZA, I'm going to make sure we get the right address here. So if you actually go to aza.org/join-us, there's an entire advocacy panel. It'll show you up and coming issues that are conservation issues, and you can even click through it. And through that website, you can even send a letter to your representative right there without having to do too much extra steps. And it can really be empowering. And honestly, a lot of the people I met in the process, we had a lot of fun doing it too. So
awesome. So you just talked about the aza.org/join-us website, but in addition, so people that aren't necessarily quite able to come visit us in particular here at the aquarium, where can they find additional information about maybe what bills might be trying to be passed right now and such forth?
Great, yeah. So I mean, AZA, like we mentioned, is a fantastic way to go. You actually can go directly to Congress's website if you go to congress.gov. And they list all 17,000 of their bills. But don't worry, there's a search bar. So you can search specifically for bills that maybe are in a topic of interest to you. You know, we are always going to be focused on the ocean and on sharks. That's one of the really big passions that we have here. But there's advocacy on all sorts of animals as well. You know, things like years ago, there was ivory trade bills that came up. All of that would have been listed there. So you can go to congress.gov. The other thing is, in your individual state, there's going to be a lot of nonprofit organizations that are also working on these topics. And any AZA zoo and facility that you go to should be able to get you pointed in the right direction. So it's a good way to kind of start the process.
All right. And then, are there any bills that people should currently be looking at in regards to sharks and shark conservation?
So that's a great question too. There are two bills currently in Congress that do relate directly to shark conservation. So the first one is actually called the Sustainable Shark Fisheries and Trade Act. And this one is designed to kind of prevent countries that cannot demonstrate that they're fishing in ecologically sound ways from importing stuff to the US. So it's got a lot of kind of details to it. That's a very general sum of it, but that's actually shown, it's a pretty promising bill. So we'll see, we're gonna kind of watch and see where that goes. And then there's also one that is a Shark Fin Sale Elimination Act, which restricts the sale and possession of shark fins as well. So that's another shark-minded conservation bill that is currently in there. So right now they've both been assigned to subcommittees. So we're still waiting for it to get to a point where we can call and either advocate for or against those bills, or no.
Now, we are an educational institution, as most aquariums and zoos are. How do we make sure that we're not overstepping into any political realms?
Yeah, that's a great thing. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things is that we're not being political. We don't want to be political, but policy is not necessarily politics. So we want to advocate for the conservation of these animals. And the best way that we can do that is we're here to provide you guys with the education and the information behind that. And then we want you to make your decision on your own as you go forward. You know, we're not lobbyists. We're not here trying to get people to vote one way or the other, but we do think that it's, you know, we do feel a responsibility to make sure that people that visit us understand what's at play and understand how they can get involved in these issues if they choose to. You know, we ourselves, you know, we're always cautious of not taking a political stance, but instead constantly advocating just for conservation as a whole, conservation of a species. And I think if you're, you know, if we make sure that we really stay on that true line, I think it's pretty easy to stay out of the dirty politics of it all. So,
perfect. Yeah. So it looks like we have a question from Jim. Do legislators really listen to letters and emails from citizens?
Excellent. So, yes, they do. You know, I've actually gotten to meet both representatives and senators. Yes, I have gone to Trenton. I have advocated with different organizations regarding things, like I said, like offshore oil drilling, which was a big concern here in our state. And all of the representatives that I've spoken to, and even their aides, believe it or not, most of the time, like, you don't get to speak to a senator. You know, I spoke to Senator Booker's aides. They actually do listen. They do, specifically if you're one of their constituents. So that's why we find it's important not just to give you the information about the legislation, but also who you should talk to, because you want to talk to the people that directly represent you. That's who they want to hear from. They want to hear from the people that are in the towns and in the cities that they actually represent. So it might seem like they don't. I certainly didn't think that my voice was going to be heard, but I actually learned that I was quite wrong in that. I shook the hands of these people and they said, we do listen to you, you know. Yes, there are 17,000 bills, which is why the timing is essential. But when we reach out the day before the vote and we say, this is what we're interested in, what we want you to support, they hear that, you know, so yeah, they really do. And yes, at the aquarium, what we've done is we encourage our staff to reach out on the issues that they feel strongly about. So if we have staff members that are in strong support of, say, a bill coming up at the state level, we do encourage them to go and speak before a committee in Trenton, or, you know, go, and we have had staff members join, you know, the March for the Oceans down in Washington, D.C. Me and a fellow staff member went to Washington, D.C. to advocate, you know, Museum Day. So we, believe it or not, we were actually, you know, one of those things, one of those museums. We're a living museum in a lot of ways. So we were able to do that. So hopefully that answered your question there. Yeah. Okay, great. So we have another question here that says, are you able to get kids involved? Yes, absolutely. Here in our town in particular, we've had some schools here in our state that have done phenomenal things at the legislative level that we've been really excited about. We have one school that we would go and do an outreach to. Every year we would do an educational program at that school. We would bring live animals, and all of our programming always has a really strong conservation message. And as a result of this kind of relationship that we developed with them, the school was inspired to take on their school board and their town and ask that they no longer be given plastic straws as part of their lunch. And the entire school got together. They wrote letters, they drew pictures, they spoke to the town council at their level, and they were able to get it passed. And they were the first school in their county to actually ban that within the school. So kids can absolutely get involved. And believe it or not, kids are a much more powerful voice than we are. Yeah. You know, I speak loud and I speak a lot, but kids are absolutely far more powerful when it comes to having the ear of a representative and kind of really being able to get involved. Yeah, so great question. Great question, okay.
So do you have any other questions or comments, concerns?
Yeah, any other questions would be great. Again, you know, sure. Can we elaborate more on what the aquarium has done locally for sharks? Okay, so that's a great question. So specifically, our aquarium here, what we've done locally for our sharks is we do a lot of shark education within our building. So we actually every summer have kind of a Shark Week style. This summer, unfortunately, it'll be a little bit different, but in previous summers, we do kind of a Shark Week event where we talk about issues like the shark, you know, global shark finning, you know, something that's happening outside of our waters here. We speak about local issues as far as, you know, how do we respect these animals? You know, we have a really big beach community. So we've had issues where we have fishermen catching protected species that probably don't know better. These aren't fishermen with like license and permits. These aren't, you know, commercial fishermen doing their jobs. These are people on the beach that are catching them, and being able to advocate and say, these are living animals. You know, we need to make sure that we're treating them with respect, that we're returning them back to the water. So I think through our education programs, we've really done the most of our legwork. We do shark education programs outside of the building. We have gone and done the 100 year anniversary of the kind of the shark attacks that happened here in New Jersey that inspired Jaws, happened a few years back. And we went to a couple of libraries and we spoke about it, and we brought the conservation message, kind of a little bit of the biology of it, to the local folks. And, you know, for me personally, I've been here for a little over 8 years, and I can tell you that from when I started till now, visitors are definitely getting the message. Yes. You know, we definitely hear a different tone from our visitors when they come in to visit, and they take that out into the community with them. You know, we tell kids sometimes the strongest thing you can do is just teach your friends about how cool these animals are, you know, and how to respect them, and, you know, for them to learn the difference between a catch and release animal versus one that they might take. Yeah, so that's kind of a lot of the stuff that we've done, you know, locally here. So great questions. So, you know, and a lot of that too, you know, we find that too, a public involvement is really important when it comes to conservation. You know, having the public be involved and having people get excited about it. You know, even so much as consumerism. We have a lot of local fishermen here. We're a local fisher, you know, our community is built on the fisheries. So even having people go out and be smarter purchasers and consumers of seafood has had a big impact here locally as well. So great. So I think that's probably about it on time. So we wanted to thank you guys all for coming and for listening. I know there is another program that will be coming afterwards. So the next hour is going to be at 5 o'clock. So if you guys want to tune in again at 5 for the next presentation, and thank you guys so much for joining us for Shark and Ray Awareness Live. Bye, guys. Stop? No. We're still on, but. Okay.
All right. Bienvenidos a todos, que tengan un buen día. Yo me llamo Madeline Márquez y yo aquí estoy con una invitada que vamos a hablar un poquito sobre tiburones. Así que hoy es el Día Mundial sobre los tiburones. Y sí, vamos a hablar un poquito sobre los tiburones, por qué importan, un poquito sobre su ciencia. Y Jimena, por favor, dinos un poquito sobre a ti y tu ciencia.
Hola a todos, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Jimena Soberanis, soy guatemalteca y estudio con tiburones en la Universidad San Carlos. Me encantan, son mi taxón favorito y les comento que en este momento no hay mucha información que podamos encontrar con respecto a los tiburones que hay en este país. No se maneja mucho, dado que es costoso. Pero pues aquí estamos para resolver las dudas y estamos para crear más conocimiento e invitamos a las demás personas que se quieran unir a iniciativas para colaborar con la conservación de tiburones y con el conteo o lo que sea.
Primero que nada, ¿por qué los tiburones? ¿Por qué querías estudiar a estos animales?
Bueno, viene desde hace mucho tiempo. Desde que yo era niña tuve la fascinación por meterme al agua y saber qué era lo que había dentro, pero me costó mucho poder volver física la idea de estudiar con tiburones y con rayas, porque es con rayas también con que he trabajado, y me enamoré de ellos al conocer su biología, al conocer un poquito de la evolución, y pues aquí estoy. Yo Yo estoy enamorada. Estoy enamorada de los peces cartilaginosos.
¿Y te gustan más los tiburones o las rayas? Una pregunta muy difícil, yo sé.
No te puedo contestar. Creo que me falta mucho por estudiar para poderte decir si prefiero a los tiburones o a las rayas.
¿Y tienes un favorito tiburón, un favorita raya?
Claro que sí. Los alopias, los tiburones zorros son mis favoritos. Me encantan ellos. Y Rhinoptera bonasus, que es la raya vaca, esa me encanta también.
¿Y por qué te gusta esa raya?
La primera raya con la que yo tuve contacto fue una Rhinoptera bonasus. Logré darle de comer y me seguía a todos lados, entonces fui muy feliz y creo que por eso se quedó en mi corazón.
Sí, sí, sí. Para mí, los tiburones más favoritos tienen que ser los tigres. Tienen una carita tan dulce y ellos de verdad no saben cómo dejarte solita un poquito de espacio cuando estás buceando. Ellos, ¿cómo se llama en inglés? No tienen personal space, no saben nada de personal
No tiene
space.
espacio personal.
No, nada de eso. Así que no, a mí yo lo amo muchísimo, los amo muchísimo. Y para las rayas, eso es difícil porque hay tantas bonitas. Y aquí en Australia, porque eso es donde yo estoy ahora, yo estoy en Australia, hay tantas especies diferentes y todas son tan bonitas que tienen colores diferentes, se ven diferentes. Ay, de verdad, yo no sé cuál es mi favorita, así que eso es algo que yo tengo que pensar, cuál es mi favorita. Para las personas que están viendo ahora, por favor, déjanos saber cuáles son tus rayas o sus tiburones favoritos, porque yo quiero saber cuál es la diversidad de a quién le gusta qué. Así que sí, esos son animales muy bonitos. Y para usted, ¿era difícil llegar a ser una científica que estudia tiburones? ¿Es algo que en la cultura para donde tú estás es aceptado o es algo diferente que muchas personas hacen allá?
Bueno, para serte honesta, no hay muchos biólogos como tal en mi país. Y la cantidad de biólogos de biólogos que nos gusta la biología marina, pues no somos muchos. Y entonces se reduce un poquito más la cantidad de personas que están interesadas en el océano, pero no quiere decir que no hayan personas interesadas. Muchas personas que están incursionando en el campo de la biología marina en Guatemala no son específicamente biólogos, sino acuicultores. Entonces, mientras un acuicultor se abre camino, ellos realmente no se preocupan tanto como por conservar, por decirlo así. No es que esto no es general, solo es lo que se observa en la mayoría. Y son varones. Entonces, como mujer cuesta mucho abrirte campo, darte a conocer, y si no tienes plata, si no tienes recursos, es un poquito más difícil todavía. Entonces, no somos muchas las personas que nos dedicamos a esto por el costo y pues por intereses más que todo.
Sí, y eso es un punto buenísimo que muchas personas no piensan en, es que ser una científica o científico que estudia los tiburones necesitas plata, no cuesta mucho para estar en lo que nosotros estamos haciendo, y para las personas que no tienen esa plata, no tienen ese apoyo de su familia, de su universidad, de verdad es difícil hacerlo. Así que es buenísimo que tú puedes estudiar lo que tú quieres. Dinos un poquito más sobre lo que tú estudias y por qué te fascina tanto.
Bueno, el primer estudio que hice fue con las rayas del Pacífico, pero teniendo los datos de las rayas del Pacífico, yo quería saber si había alguna relación con respecto al tamaño, la madurez y el tamaño del hígado de estos animales para lograr tal vez establecer periodos de pesca para poder minimizar las menguas en las poblaciones, pero sobre todo quería dar a conocer esta información a los pescadores de la región para que lograran tener límites. Me topé con varios factores. No hay una pesca dirigida como tal para las rayas, sino que muchas son capturadas por capturas incidentales, por bycatch. Entonces, de todas maneras, se aprovecha la carne y pues gracias a todos los pescadores que tenían rayas en sus redes, yo pude sacar los datos que necesitaba para poder dar a conocer mi investigación con algunos de los pescadores con los que trabajé. Aunado con esto, logré también capturar tiburones, uno de ellos, una quimera. Si están familiarizados con las quimeras, una quimera salió nada más y pues la dejamos ir porque no estaba muy bien de salud y solo iba a provocar contaminación. Y con respecto a los tiburones, también logré establecer cuáles eran las especies que más aparecen en la pesca incidental, cuáles son las que se comercializan y pues con base en eso generar un poquito de más información para los guatemaltecos. Tal vez a nivel nacional no se puede hacer tan grande, pero sí para los pescadores y dejarles saber, miren, este está muy joven, este es demasiado, esta hembra está en estado de gravidez, entonces sería mejor regresarla al océano para que pueda cumplir su función. Pero también es un tema un poquito complicado de tratar con los pescadores con respecto al valor económico que tiene la carne de las rayas y los tiburones. Entonces, para responderte a tu pregunta un poquito, me generalicé bastante, pero empecé a trabajar con rayas, también tengo los datos de los tiburones y mucho de lo que me interesa en este momento es si hay alguna relación entre la acidificación del océano y las escamas de los tiburones. Esa es una de las cosas. Otra es lograr hacer un monitoreo más grande, un poquito, tal vez de un par de años, para lograr establecer cuáles son las especies que están solamente migrando, si hay especies que están en estado de gravidez y están formando como colonias en algunos sectores de los lugares en donde están pescando los pescadores, y eso para lograr cuidar las comunidades. Y claro, no vamos a poder detener la pesca que está dirigida a los tiburones o a las rayas, pero por lo menos vamos a poder crear un sentido de conciencia y tratar de establecer límites para poder conservar.
Sí, y yo creo que tú tienes un punto muy importante, que es necesitamos esa relación con las personas que pescan para estos animales, porque ellos de verdad, estos son las personas más importantes y no puedes solo ser, no puedes acoger a los tiburones, porque para muchas personas eso es lo que ellos hacen, eso es la comida, eso es como ellos tienen la plata, así que no solo le puedes decir, no, perdón, no puedes coger un tiburón y dejarlos, necesitan algo también para hablar sobre eso, así que esa relación ahí en Guatemala, ¿cómo es? ¿Cómo lo estás encontrando?
Suficientemente difícil, porque entonces los pescadores me dicen, bueno, entonces, ¿qué pescamos pues? ¿Cuáles son los momentos? Porque también necesitamos alimentar a la familia, necesitamos salir adelante nosotros como personas. Entonces, creo que se necesita más ayuda de más biólogos, personas que estén interesadas en la etnobiología, sociólogos, pero realmente no hay muchas personas interesadas en dar a conocer esta información, y tal vez no he encontrado a los que están interesados para poder ayudarme a difundir la información y pues, como te digo, tal vez manejar grupos de personas que pescan en periodos establecidos o que sepan un poquito más sobre la biología de los animales para poder establecer si lo capturamos, no lo capturamos o qué se puede hacer para tratar de mantenerlos en su hábitat.
Y en tu opinión, ¿tú crees que las personas de Guatemala saben que hay tiburones en esas aguas? ¿Cómo tú crees que es la relación sobre la persona ahí que no sabe nada de tiburones, que tú sabes, como es una persona de tu familia o un amigo? ¿Ellos saben sobre los tiburones o no saben nada sobre los tiburones ahí en Guatemala?
Pues en mi casa y mis amigos, me vienen escuchando y creo que aprenden un poquito de lo que yo les puedo comunicar, porque soy así como un poquito como loca en ese sentido. También en mi casa, pero siempre trato de dar un poquito de más información con respecto a este tema para personas que no tienen ni idea, porque todos viven bajo la idea de que los tiburones son peligrosos y punto, y hay que matarlos. Ya, si te metes al agua, te va a comer un tiburón y punto. Y creo que ese no es el sentido. Lamentablemente el comercio pues así los hace ver, pero siento que hay ideas muy equivocadas que hay que tratar de encarrilar para poder dejarle a conocer a toda la población que pues estos animales viven en su hábitat natural y necesitan alimentarse también, pero también dejarles saber que hay tiburones en donde están y los peligros a los que se enfrentan de meterse al agua o de tratar de interaccionar o de interactuar con alguna de las especies.
Y vamos a hablar un momento para algo que tú dijiste, es que hay una imagen de los tiburones que esos son monstruos y las películas, los periódicos, de verdad no ayudan esa conversación. ¿Es algo que tú ves mucho en los periódicos ahí o las personas hablando mala sobre los tiburones?
Realmente no sale ninguna información en los periódicos sobre tiburones o sobre cuidados en la biodiversidad. ¿Para qué te digo mentiras? No tenemos muchas noticias con respecto a cuidados de peces, por decirlo así. Únicamente si te vas a un foro, si vas a una universidad o algún curso en donde estén hablando de estos animales, pues vas a encontrar un poquito más de información, pero en general no aparece información de esta categoría en los noticieros. Hay muy poca información.
¿Muchas películas? ¿Ven muchas películas sobre los tiburones ahí o no?
No, ¿para qué te miento? Pero lo que viene, las películas que vienen así como Jaws y las últimas de Mar Abierto, creo que fue una de las últimas, pues hacen ver a los tiburones como grotescos. Y entonces, ¿qué pasa? Si le regalas a un niño un peluche de un tiburón, se asusta y realmente no conoce mucho, pero es por todo el bombardeo de comercio que hay con respecto a las películas y lo que hacen, lo que hace que vean a los tiburones de esta mala manera, pues.
Sí. No, yo creo también que en todo el mundo tenemos ese problema que muchas personas solo que ellos saben sobre los tiburones viene de películas, de lo que leen en los periódicos y muchas veces también las películas no son real, como Sharknado, como Jaws, como The Shallows, The Deep, The Meg, todas esas de verdad no son real, pero las personas creen que son real y porque como tú dijiste, se ven grotescas, estos animales, muchas personas tienen miedo a ellos. Y yo creo que en los Estados Unidos, aquí en Australia, muchas veces nosotros vamos a las playas y ven un tiburón y las personas tienen miedo o algo pasa, como aquí en Australia ya en 2 semanas hay 3 personas diferentes que se han mordido de un tiburón y todos están diciendo,
Claro.
Los tiburones nos están atacando, ¿qué vamos a hacer sobre los tiburones? Y eso es lo que ellos tienen en la mente, que es como una guerra sobre los tiburones y las personas en la agua, pero de verdad eso es su lugar, ellos no tienen ningún lugar para irse, así que
Exacto.
nosotros no tenemos que ir al agua, queremos ir al agua para nadar, para pescar, lo que sea, pero ellos de verdad necesitan estar ahí y yo creo que unos peluches pueden ayudar si se ven como adorable y todo eso, como uno de mis favoritos que yo tengo aquí, porque siempre lo tengo. El tiburón de aquí, el shark, es tan adorable y bien como este chiquitito aquí, pero tienen el grande también. Y yo creo que es muy importante para enseñarle a los niños, mira, se ve adorable y aquí hace muchas cosas diferentes con los tiburones, como año pasado, para las Navidades, había un tiburón que era Santa Claus a frente de la IKEA que yo vivía cerca de. Así que yo creo que muy suavemente podemos cambiar como las personas pueden ver los tiburones. Muy lentamente lo podemos cambiar, pero necesitamos ayuda sobre las personas que están reportando sobre los tiburones, sobre las películas y, como tú dijiste, educar a las personas un poquito más sobre los tiburones.
Sí, cabe mencionar con respecto a lo que tú dijiste, no tenemos ninguna necesidad de meternos al agua y hay que entender que esa es su casa y que cualquier persona o cualquier ente que se siente amenazado por otro organismo va a querer defender su hogar. Entonces, creo que es muy importante entender los límites que tenemos como humanos con los animales, y no solamente con los tiburones, sino con todos los animales. Todos tienen su hábitat y todos van a defenderse si se sienten agredidos o si se sienten amenazados.
Sí, es como, mira, personas no van a la sabana y dicen, mira los leones, voy a nadar con ellos, voy a caminar con ellos, y nadie dice nada malo de eso porque dicen, oye, eso es un poquito estúpido. Es lo mismo aquí, que yo creo que personas no se acuerdan que el océano es algo peligroso. No solo los tiburones, pero hay muchos animales ahí que te pueden matar. Yo creo que eso es algo de una de las cosas más primeras que yo aprendí aquí en Australia, era no tocas nada. Sí. Todo te puede matar. No solo los tiburones, pero muchas otras cosas. Tú sabes, quédate ahí cerquita y no... Tenga un poquito de respeto. Yo creo que es algo que personas no se recuerdan, es darle un poquito de respeto a estos animales. Porque yo no sé si tú has visto, pero muchas veces cuando una persona está interactuando con un tiburón, lo cogen por la colita o lo tratan de besar y después la persona, yo no sé por qué me mordió. Si tú ahí estabas cogiéndome por la pompita o tratando de darme un beso, yo también te iba a dar un cantazo.
Sí, es un poquito, ¿cómo te digo? Controversial cómo tratamos de acercarnos a un animal sin querer intimidarlo, porque somos un ente totalmente ajeno a lo que ellos están acostumbrados a ver en su entorno. Entonces, pues es totalmente normal que también un animal sienta curiosidad. Es normal para nosotros también querer saber cómo va a reaccionar si lo toco. ¡Ay, qué cariñoso, qué bonito! No es un perro, no, es un animal que no está acostumbrado a estar rodeado de humanos y que puede sufrir estrés por lo mismo. Entonces, creo que es importante también, como tú dices, formar una cultura de respeto. Yo, humano, es un animal y pues se respeta, ¿verdad? ¡Ay, qué bonito! Ahí está, dejémoslo. Él está en su casa, está en su ambiente natural.
Y darle espacio también. Eso es una cosa que para mí, yo no sé por qué es tan difícil para las personas ver un tiburón y la primera cosa que ellos creen es, déjame tocarlo. Es como que nosotros todo queremos tocar y de verdad no necesitamos tocar cada animal que nosotros vemos. Yo no veo muchas personas tratando de tocar un pez, así que para mí no hace sencillo porque ellos quieren tocar y es, mira, déjalo en paz, déjalo tener su espacio.
Sí, claro que sí. Pero cuesta, como te digo, tú como científica ya has tenido ese acercamiento y has logrado saltarte esa barrera de, bueno, ahí está el animal, dejémoslo ahí y qué bonito, pero para los que no han tenido esa experiencia se vuelve como, yo quiero ver, yo quiero tocarlo, quiero saber qué pasa. Y siento que esa curiosidad lamentablemente a muchos nos lleva a tener accidentes que luego no entendemos.
Sí, y tengo que preguntar, ¿hay muchos acuarios ahí en Guatemala que tienen tiburones para personas ver?
¡No! ¡No! Y soy muy feliz por eso, muy, muy feliz, pero no en el sentido de que no para que las personas no conozcan, ¿verdad? Porque no, siento que enjaular a un animal o confinarlo en un área en el que él no está acostumbrado a estar no es algo válido. Entonces, sí, me siento contenta de que no hay.
Sí. Así que para las personas que quieren saber un poquito más sobre tiburones en Guatemala, ¿qué recursos hay?
Bueno, hay varias organizaciones, Fundación Mundo Azul, Fundaeco creo que es otra, incluso pueden abocarse a los estudiantes de biología de cualquiera de las universidades, porque, bueno, tal vez no estemos todos en el mismo barco estudiando biología marina o estudiando pues, los taxones que más nos gustan, pero más de algo de información van a obtener de nosotros o simplemente podemos recabar información, pedirle información a los estudiantes de acuicultura de la Universidad de San Carlos también. Ellos manejan una base de datos bastante amplia en cuanto a las especies de tiburones que hay en Guatemala. Ellos también tienen varios especímenes. Tal vez no los puedan ver en algún momento en específico, pero creo que pidiendo un permiso sí pueden acercarse y platicar sobre los tiburones, cómo son, qué hacen y ver las especies tan bonitas que hay, porque ellos tienen bastantes organismos. Hay otra entidad, el MUSHNAT, que es el Museo de Historia Natural en Guatemala. Está en la ciudad y pues ellos reciben a mucha gente y si las personas quieren saber un poquito más de animales, pues pueden abocarse a los biólogos o a las personas que trabajan en esa entidad porque van a encontrar mucha información y las puertas siempre están abiertas.
Para usted, ¿cuál era la primera experiencia que tenías con un tiburón?
La primera experiencia con un tiburón, hace bastante tiempo. Fue hace bastante tiempo. Yo fui a un acuario en Nueva York y me encantó la experiencia. Entonces, cuando regresé, decidí que eso era lo que yo quería hacer. Además de estudiar biología, yo quería enfocarme en ciertos organismos, porque como biólogo eres ambicioso y lo quieres saber todo y lo quieres estudiar todo, pero no se puede. Entonces, pues ese taxón, como te digo, me enamoró. Luego tener la experiencia con una raya en Belice, trabajar con las rayas en el mar directamente, en el Pacífico de Guatemala. Y otra de las situaciones que me llenó muchísimo fue en México. Me metí y por eso bastantes personas me regañan, pero aquí estoy viva contándolo. Me metí a nadar con tiburones maco. Y, sí, y entonces dije, me atreví porque es algo que firmas por cuenta y riesgo. Me atreví a agarrar un pez para darle la carnada, pero cuando empecé a ondear el pez en el agua, me di cuenta cómo la expresión del tiburón cambió totalmente y los ojos se fijaron en el pez que yo tenía. Pues yo pensaba que era en mí y entonces me dio muchísimo miedo y yo estaba con mi mejor amigo en ese momento y él me empezó a jalar y yo así como, no, voy a esperar a ver qué sucede y pues si se va mi mano, pues se fue. Siento que no lo debí de hacer, pero de todos modos lo hice y el tiburón maco solo pasó nadando y me arrebató el pez a una velocidad que creo que jamás voy a volver a ver. Y gracias a Dios, aquí tengo mis dos manos y estoy muy bien y contenta de haber tenido esa experiencia en México. Increíble.
Pero qué padre. Yo no he conocido muchas personas que han nadado con esos tiburones y sin jaula también, así que qué padre es eso. Y ese es uno de los... ¿Fuiste nadando uno de más después?
Bueno, después regresé a Guatemala. Aquí en Guate realmente no he tenido la experiencia como tal para decirte que nadé con X tiburón, porque no. Pero estando en uno de los canales que salen al mar, haciendo mi estudio, vino una hembra, tiburón martillo. Estaba embarazada y lamentablemente al llegar a la orilla, pues yo pensé que estaba viva y me emocioné, pero lamentablemente estaba muerta. Entonces solo llegó a la orilla y pues unos pescadores me ayudaron a sacarla, estaba embarazada, ahí tienen los bebés en el departamento de acuicultura de la universidad y sí, esa creo que fue la última vez que logré tocar a un tiburón martillo, una hembra embarazada.
Ay, wow, eso tiene que ser, pero una experiencia tan especial.
Sí.
Para las personas que están en los comentarios, por favor, déjanos saber si tú has buceado o nadado con tiburones, cómo te sentiste. Ahora tú nadas muchos con los tiburones y no tanto.
Pues en este momento no por el coronavirus, pero espero hacerlo o regresar a hacerlo de nuevo porque también me quedé a medias en un curso de buceo y pues quiero seguir haciendo eso y volver a tener estas experiencias inolvidables con los animales del océano que me encantan, realmente me fascinan.
Sí, para mí yo aprendí cómo bucear en las Islas Británicas, Islas Británicas, y eso era una experiencia, pero definitivamente tan especial para mí. Y eso de verdad, cuando yo hice eso, yo dije, ok, esto es lo que yo quiero hacer con mi vida, yo quiero bucear, yo quiero saber más de estos animales, porque es un mundo tan especial. Y yo no sabía que el océano hace ruido. Suena como muy tonto, pero cuando estás debajo de las olas, puedes oír tanto ruido. Y no es solo del bote, no, son los animales. Y estar ahí con los tiburones para la primera vez. Muchos de los tiburones nodriza y todo eso. Eso para mí era tan especial, para verlos en su hogar. Y yo ya los amaba. Pero yo creo para las personas, para verlos en su hogar, naturalmente hay como haciendo lo que ellos están haciendo, comiendo, no te están haciendo nada de atención. Y yo creo que es importante para las personas verlos así, porque es tan diferente que tú ves en las películas o lees que ellos dicen, pues te miran y después te quieren comer y ahí se va tu brazo. No, es tan especial, ellos te miran y es como...
Exacto.
Yo no sé si era para ti, pero para mí, la primera vez que un tiburón me miró, yo ahí como, no estaba como un pánico, pero era como, ok, ellos me pueden ver, pero totalmente. Yo no puedo irme por ningún lado. Ellos van a saber dónde yo estoy. Y ellos se pueden ir y yo ya no los puedo ver, pero ellos todavía me pueden ver a mí. Y eso me fascinó. Eso me fascinó. Así que yo creo que cuesta mucho. Necesitas plata para ir a nadar, para bucear, para hacer el snorkel y todo eso con los tiburones, pero ojalá un día para las personas que están escuchando, otras personas también que puedan nadar con tiburones, porque es una experiencia tan especial que yo creo de verdad puede cambiar como una persona ve a estos animales.
Claro que sí, totalmente de acuerdo con lo que estás diciendo. Perder ese miedo de saber que, claro, que puede ser atacada por cualquier animal, no solamente por tiburones. Es algo que tienes que aprender a dominar cuando estás abajo, cuando estás en el mar, porque van a haber tortugas, van a haber muchísimos animales y de hecho en una de las experiencias que tuve estando en Belice, habían unos tiburones con aletas puntas negras, no nos hicieron ni caso y yo toda emocionada, pero luego se acercó como una colonia de medusas y algunos de mis amigos sí se tuvieron que salir porque empezaron a sentir como esa picazón, ese como ardor que sientes cuando con las medusas y eran muy pequeñas, entonces mejor se salieron y pues algunos de nosotros nos quedamos ahí todavía de intrusos porque a veces sí pues te tienes que salir, ¿verdad? Por estar en otro ambiente que no es el tuyo, pero por querer investigar, por querer ver un poco más, logras descubrir tantas cosas y abrir las puertas para más personas, porque creo que contando tus experiencias haces que la gente diga, sí, eso hay que hacerlo. Hay que encontrar la manera de vencer ese miedo para poder ver cómo las otras personas miran estos animales y saber cuál es su importancia ecológica y biológica. Entonces, para los que no aceptan esas como experiencias, pues ni modo, ¿verdad? También hay que respetar, pero para los que no han tenido la experiencia de hacer snorkeling o de bucear, las puertas están abiertas para todas las personas y hay muchas entidades que los pueden recibir y no es tan costoso, no es gratis obviamente, pero creo que es una experiencia que todos tenemos que tener para poder desarrollar aún más respeto por la vida marina.
Sí, y mira, hablando de las experiencias, yo aquí estoy leyendo los comentarios y Natalia Vargas López dice que yo no he nadado con tiburones, pero Jimena me ha inspirado para buscar una experiencia como esa. Así que sí, hablando de nuestras experiencias, lo que nosotros hemos hecho inspira a otras personas a hacer lo que nosotros queremos hacer o lo que nosotros estamos haciendo, porque yo creo que muchas personas cuando ellos hablan sobre tiburones tienen miedo, pero para los dos hablamos sobre los tiburones con pasión y eso es diferente. Yo creo que a personas les gusta eso y quieren saber un poquito más por qué tenemos tanta pasión sobre los tiburones. Así que yo creo que es muy importante. Así que muchísimas gracias, Natalia, por estar aquí con nosotros y viendo este vivo con nosotros. Tengo otra pregunta para ti, Jimena. Estábamos hablando un poquito sobre la pesca de los tiburones ahí en Guatemala y algo que muchas personas hablan sobre es las aletas de los tiburones y pescando para las aletas de los tiburones. Eso es un problema ahí, no solo en Guatemala, pero en Latinoamérica, que tú sabes, ¿sí o no?
Claro que sí. Sí, es un problema porque, como te comento, está prohibido en este país el aleteo. Cortar las aletas y dejar al tiburón está prohibido. Pero lo que muchos de los pescadores hacen es, obviamente, cortar las aletas y en vez de tirar al resto de lo que queda del animal al agua, lo llevan a sus barcos y se vende la carne. Entonces, también te había bajado un poquito de información sobre esto. Te lo puedo compartir posteriormente y algunas de las especies que están en peligro de extinción que han sufrido de aleteo aquí en Guatemala son los tiburones martillo, como Sphyrna mocarran y Sphyrna lelwini, Carcharinus falciformis, que es el tiburón sedoso, Alopias superciliosus, que es el tiburón rojo, el que tiene los ojos bastante grandes, y el Alopias pelagicus, que es el zorro pelágico. Entonces, estas son algunas de las especies que se encuentran en la lista roja o pues tal vez están en peligro de extinción o en la lista anaranjada, pero son de los que se ha tenido avistamiento de que sí se hace aleteo y pues se logran identificar las aletas y pues se obtiene esta información. Pero lamentablemente, aunque está prohibido, hay muchos pescadores que, como te digo, es un poquito controversial el tema de subsistencia y que no se pesque para nada porque es controversial.
Sí, y se come mucho los tiburones ahí en Guatemala en la comida que ustedes tienen.
Realmente no, pero para las comunidades que viven cerca de la costa es una comida casi del día a día, porque no hay otro recurso o el recurso es muy limitado para tener otro tipo u otra variedad de comida en casa. Mucha de la carne que viene a la capital, a la ciudad capital desde las zonas costeras, es de tiburones y simplemente las personas están consumiendo el pescado, pero no saben que están comiendo tiburón. Entonces, esa es otra de las situaciones que me gustaría dar a conocer, es por favor, que las personas no se fíen de que lo que están comiendo es un filete de róbalo o es atún, porque muchas veces las personas que venden o comercializan la carne, la venden como tal, pero es carne de tiburón. Entonces, si pudieran las personas comprar el pez completo para evidenciar que no es un tiburón, aunque yo sé que hay que pelarlo en casa, hay que quitarle las escamas y hay que sacarle los desechos de adentro, es muy importante saber qué están consumiendo y así tratar de menguar la compra de tiburón o de raya, porque la raya también se consume.
¿Y tú crees que les importaría si es tiburón o raya o no?
Pues para muchas de las personas que conozco, creo que sí les importa. Lamentablemente he escuchado comentarios en donde me dicen, hey, mira, Jimena, discúlpame, no, yo sé que a ti te encantan los tiburones, pero a mí me encanta comer sopa de aleta y no lo voy a dejar de hacer. O sí, pues me comía carne de tiburón y realmente no me importó. Entonces, para los que no saben lo que están consumiendo y quisieran ayudar a las especies, a conservar las especies, por favor, solo tengan cuidado con lo que están comiendo y traten de ver el animal completo para saber qué es lo que están comiendo. Y de lo contrario, si no lo saben, pues lamentablemente no se puede hacer mucho.
¿Y hay recursos sobre saber un poquito más sobre lo que ellos están comiendo? Como las personas que están ahí, ellos tienen, en muchos lugares ahora, si tú tienes un smartphone, puedes tener un app que dice si la comida que tú estás comiendo es buena o no. ¿Ustedes tienen algo similar allá o todavía no?
No, todavía no. ¿Para qué te digo mentiras? No, todavía no.
¿Es algo que tú crees que va a pasar en estos próximos años? Tener un poquito más la comida sostenible ahí.
Sí, quiero pensar que sí. Quiero pensar que podemos lograr tal vez hacer un poquito de revolución, no solamente con los animales del mar, sino que con otras exóticas que hay aquí en este hermoso país para lograr cuidar a las poblaciones de los animales. Entonces sí, creo que me encantaría pensar en que las compañeras de nutrición puedan ayudar un poquito con este aspecto y pues todos somos un gremio y todos podemos ayudar a crear mejores condiciones para los guatemaltecos y mitigar las cazas o las pescas de animales exóticos.
Sí, tiene que ser una colaboración, no solo sobre las personas que están pescando, los científicos o los doctores, tienen que todos hacer algo junto para tener algo de un cambio sobre esto. Sí. Y para las personas que no saben, ¿cuál tipos de tiburones ustedes tienen en Guatemala?
Tengo también una lista. Tiburones martillo, tenemos tiburón tigre, tiburones zorro, carcarino, bueno, tiburones sedoso también. Te puedo mandar la lista de los tiburones que tenemos. Aún no hay ningún dato que nos deje saber que tenemos algunas otras especies de tiburones como tiburón ballena. Sé que sé que hubo un avistamiento de, supongamos, una hembra adulta con su bebé, pero es lo único que se sabe. No, realmente creo que hace falta mucho estudio para poder saber un poquito más de qué es lo que realmente hay en Guatemala para poder tener un listado formal y poder presentarlo así.
Y en tu opinión, ¿por qué tú crees que no hay un listado formal más oficial? Porque yo creo que cuando yo estaba haciendo un poquito de viendo lo que hay ahí en el mundo de los tiburones científicos ahí, de verdad yo no vi mucho sobre los tiburones de Guatemala o de Latinoamérica. ¿Por qué tú crees que esto está pasando?
En primer lugar, porque es muy costoso. En segundo lugar, creo que nos hemos enfocado en otras especies que sí tienen un valor comercial muchísimo más elevado que la carne del tiburón. Y es por eso que no se enfocan tanto los esfuerzos en investigación y en ahondar en el conocimiento de las especies que hay de tiburón en Guatemala. Pero creo que sí se puede lograr con ayuda de acuicultores, con ayuda de algunas organizaciones y claro, de más biólogos que estén interesados en hacer ese trabajo.
Y hablando sobre eso, para las personas que están escuchando, tenemos como 15 minutos más, así que eso dice, si ustedes tienen preguntas, por favor, danos unas preguntas. Y tenemos uno de Jorge Márquez que dice, ¿qué consejos le darían a los jóvenes que les gustaría esta carrera, pero no tienen pocos recursos?
¿Aquí en Guatemala?
Cualquiera, ¿en Guatemala o en otros lugares?
Bueno, creo que la pasión se pega, se transmite y si puedes conseguir información en una universidad pública, en una universidad autónoma, sería una buena oportunidad para poder hacerlo. Aquí en Guatemala, en la universidad en la que yo estudio, la educación es casi gratuita, por decirlo así. Es una muy buena universidad, pero creo que si no tienes los recursos económicos, siempre está internet, siempre me puedes mandar un correo y nos podemos poner de acuerdo y yo te puedo mandar la información en PDF que yo tenga o compartir contigo lo que tú necesites saber. Incluso en redes sociales está Melissa Cristina Márquez aquí con nosotros y hay muchísimos biólogos marinos, personas que se dedican a hacer ciencia e investigación que nos pueden dar muchísima más información si no estuviera en los recursos pagar por la educación.
Y eso es algo que yo iba a decir, que para las personas que están viéndonos, hay muchas personas que están en las redes sociales. Jimena y yo, muchísimos otros biólogos marinos y biólogas marinas. Así que, por favor, si tienen Instagram, si tienen Twitter, si tienen Facebook y otras redes sociales, nos puedes encontrar. Y para las personas que quieren conectar con usted, ¿dónde te podemos encontrar, Jimena?
Bueno, estoy en Instagram como PRYOX, Priox, no sé si se los puedes enviar. Si quieren mandarme un correo, puedo también compartir mi correo para que ustedes lo tengan. Y también estoy en Twitter, así que pueden encontrarme en Twitter, en Instagram, a mi correo y podemos ponernos de acuerdo y podemos compartir la información que yo tengo.
Sí, sí, tú sabes que yo voy a encontrarte en Twitter muy rápido y lo voy a poner en el chat que nosotros tenemos ahí en YouTube para personas que nos pueden encontrar. Así que sí, hay muchas personas ahí y yo creo que es muy importante ver quién está en las redes sociales, no solo para verte en lo que está pasando, pero también para comunicar con otras personas. Jimena y yo nos encontramos por Twitter o por Instagram y hay muchas personas que puedes hacer esa conexión con, hablar sobre lo que a ti te apasiona y después hacer algo sobre eso. Así que para las personas que no sabían, Jimena estaba en mi podcast Conciencia Azul, en uno de los primeros episodios y hablamos un poquito sobre su trabajo y todo eso. Así que tú no puedes saber lo que tú puedes hacer en las redes sociales. Puedes encontrar muchísimas cosas. Así que es muy importante, si ustedes tienen las redes sociales, úsenlas, porque de verdad tú puedes hacer muchísimo con eso.
Claro que sí.
Y también nos puedes hacer preguntas. Hay muchas personas que usan las redes sociales como algo para conectarse con otras científicos, hablar proyectos y aprender un poquito más también. Para ahí en Guatemala, ¿tú has visto muchas personas utilizar las redes sociales para hablar un poquito sobre la conservación?
No, fíjate que es un tema, realmente hay muchas personas que utilizan las redes sociales para otros proyectos, para proyectos de comercialización de productos o para vender sus marcas, pero realmente no hay mucho uso de redes sociales para conservación. Solo conozco a un grupo de personas que lo hace. Ellos son Semillas del Océano. También los pueden encontrar en Instagram, en Facebook, no sé si en Twitter, pero recientemente mis compañeras de la universidad y yo estamos por formar un grupo para dar a conocer diferentes aspectos sobre ciencia, sobre biodiversidad y conservación, y una vez lo tengamos pues a flote, pues podemos dar a conocer al mundo lo que pensamos y y claro, tener la colaboración de más personas y así poder darles más información de lo que hay y pues ayudar a cuidar de esa manera los recursos.
Y si tú tenías todo el apoyo y el dinero del mundo, ¿qué proyecto sobre los tiburones tú querías hacer?
Excelente pregunta. Sabía que algo más o menos así venía. Bueno, una de mis ambiciones con respecto a la conservación de tiburones es tener puntos de monitoreo para poder lograr abastecer a las comunidades que se dedican a la pesca, educarlas. Y tenemos dos mares, tenemos Atlántico y Pacífico, entonces mi proyecto es un poquito ambicioso en ese sentido, tener puntos de monitoreo, poder dar a conocer qué es lo que hay, con qué se pueden encontrar, qué es de buena utilidad comercial en cuanto a los pescadores y qué no es tan factible comercializar por daño al ecosistema, por conservación, porque se encuentre en la lista roja de la IUCN y así poder explotar un poco más de la biodiversidad que maneja nuestro país. Entonces, si yo tuviera mucho dinero, eso es lo que haría.
Sí, eso es perfecto, eso es perfecto. Yo creo que si yo podía poner algo para ver dónde los tiburones van y tener una cámara para ver lo que ellos pueden ver, eso me encantaría. Pero para cada tiburón, cada tiene una cámara para ver qué ellos ven y qué están haciendo. Cada tiene uno. Solo para ver cómo se interactan, no solo con ellos mismos, pero con otros animales también. Yo sé que muchos animales, el segundo que ellos ven un tiburón, dicen, no, yo me voy de aquí, y se van, pero volando. Así que es muy interesante para mí para ver cómo eso puede cambiar un hábitat.
Sí, exactamente. Las relaciones sociales de los animales, de los tiburones, más que todo, creo que son un mito que hay que lograr escudriñar, hay que lograr saber qué es lo que está pasando y pues eso requiere de muchos recursos, pero en algún momento se puede lograr.
Sí, yo creo que sí. Y ¿has tenido como un sentido para estudiar tiburones en otro lugar o por qué Guatemala? ¿Por qué quedarte ahí?
Bueno, en primer lugar porque este es el país en donde yo nací y entonces quiero graduarme de la universidad de aquí, terminar de hacer mis estudios aquí y de repente irme por ahí para saber un poquito más acerca de los tiburones. Entonces, no sé, de repente Australia, donde tú estás, Canadá, México, incluso Argentina, tienen muy bonitos proyectos en Argentina y en Chile. Y claro, en la India también tenemos un compañero que nos acompaña, que es de la India. Él trabaja con tiburones y pues de repente, de momentos, logramos conversar un poquito y platicar sobre las diferentes especies que hay ahí o qué es lo que está sucediendo ahí, si se comercializa, si no se comercializa, si se come. Y pues eso, entonces hay varios puntos en el planeta que me gustaría hacer un poquito de investigar y claro, seguir aprendiendo más sobre la biología de no solo los tiburones, sino de todos los demás animales del océano.
Sí. Y para las rayas, si tú podías hacer algo, ¿qué querías hacer?
Con respecto a las rayas, monitoreo y una lista de especies también, porque si se sabe poco de los tiburones, de las rayas se sabe menos. Entonces, creo que también es importante saber un poquito más de la biología de las rayas y de las especies que hay.
Muy importante, muy importante. Pues muchísimas gracias a todos que están aquí, que estaban haciendo comentarios. Es muy importante tener estas conversaciones sobre la conservación en muchas lenguas. En español es muy importante porque, como tú puedes ver, tenemos tiburones, muchísimos tiburones. Yo quiero también decir muchísimas gracias a Jimena por estar aquí.
A ti, gracias por invitarme, por siempre tomarme en cuenta y pues ya sabes, aquí estamos para cualquier duda, para cualquier comentario, incluso para investigar un poquito más, para aprender.
Y las redes sociales para nosotros, el Instagram está ahí en los comentarios para los dos. Así que muchísimas gracias a todos y que tengan un buenísimo día.
Chao, cuídense mucho.
Hi, and welcome to Shark and Ray Awareness Day Live, a program presented by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums and the SAFE Conservation Program. SAFE stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. It's a collaborative conservation program by AZA and its partners that leverages the 200 plus institutions worth of experience and the incredible platform that the 200 million annual visitors provides to really make a difference in marine conservation. We've been hosting a series of interviews throughout the day, 8 interviews today, and we're batting cleanup, so we get to come in and finish the day out. It's been a great day so far. We're really excited to participate. My name is Jim Wharton. I'm the Director of Conservation Engagement and Learning at the Seattle Aquarium. And I'm here with my 2 colleagues from the aquarium. We're going to talk a little bit about a really exciting conservation project that we're involved in, a large collaborative project with many institutions. As you have questions, please do put them into the YouTube chat, and we'll try to answer them either throughout the talk or at the end. And we're just excited to get started. So I'm going to turn to my colleagues to allow them to introduce themselves. So maybe we'll start with Aaron.
Great. Hi, everyone. So I'm Erin Meyer, the Director of Conservation Programs and Partnerships at the Seattle Aquarium.
Hi, all. I'm Grant Abel, the Director for Life Sciences at the Seattle Aquarium.
Now, you haven't heard wrong. There are multiple conservation directors at the Seattle Aquarium, and that's not redundancy. It's actually on purpose. And but it is a little strange. So why does the Seattle Aquarium have 3 conservation directors?
Maybe I'll jump in on that one and let both of you jump in at any point. So when we thought about how we wanted to expand our conservation work at the Seattle Aquarium, we wanted to ensure that conservation, which is core to our mission and who we are, was thoroughly integrated across the organization. The why seems obvious to us, but it's because conservation can't be successful without diverse perspectives and expertise at the table from the start. And co-generated interdisciplinary conservation strategies are what lead to success. And this for us, this translates to everything from our internal team composition to international collaborations. So a little over 2 years ago, we launched a new position, the position that I sit in at the aquarium, and shifted our narrative. And as Jim said, as you heard, as we introduced ourselves, we now have 3 conservation directors, the 3 of us here from the Seattle Aquarium on this call. And we span across pretty much all the major conservation programs at the aquarium. So our engagement and learning programs, our research and policy programs, and our animal care and rehab programs. And what this looks like in practice is that it means when a new conservation project, like the one we're going to be talking about today, emerges, that project from the start, that it brings together relevant expertise from across the organization. And I mentioned about 2 years ago, so we're only about 2 years into this new, fully integrated model. And so we're still ironing out various processes, but we do have lots of successes, I would say, to point to in this short time.
Absolutely. And if I can just add, Jim and Aaron, it just makes sense, I think, for an aquarium to move in this direction, particularly as our focus is on species conservation and the integration of ex situ and in situ programs in order to be successful with species conservation and biodiversity conservation in the wild. So it really is, I think, just a logical step and a great direction for us to be taking.
Not only is it an integrated approach, which of course I love, but I think another thing that's important is that as AZA institutions, zoos and aquariums are situated within their communities. And because we're community situated, it means we can be responsive to our community. And I think listen and really participate in a place-based way, in a way that maybe other institutions that have a broader focus might not be able to. One of those projects that we're starting to focus on here is really exciting. It's the STAR project. And I'll let Aaron and Grant go into a little more detail about what the STAR project entails. In fact, that's probably a good place to go. Aaron, can you give us a little sort of quick synopsis of what that project's all about?
Absolutely. And I might actually start with the problem statement and why we're here even doing this project. So the Indo-Pacific leopard sharks, known as in the US as zebra sharks and in Indonesia as kut-kut belimbing, have experienced global population declines, which is what led to their listing as endangered on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. And they've experienced some increased protections in parts of its range, particularly in Indonesia, but that they're still not showing signs of recovery really anywhere within Southeast Asia. And there've been some rare sightings by divers in Southeast Asia, particularly in some parts of Indonesia and off of Australia, but they are functionally extinct within some parts of their range, again, particularly in Indonesia. So the STAR project, STAR stands for Stegostoma tigrinum Augmentation and Recovery. It's a mouthful, hence the acronym, but it is a multinational collaborative initiative focused on reestablishing a self-sustaining, healthy population of these sharks within targeted sites within Southeast Asia. Once I would say it is off the ground, but once it truly gets up and running, it will be the world's first conservation translocation of captive bred endangered elasmobranchs, so sharks, rays, and skates, anywhere in the world, ever. And as Jim mentioned, this is a really intensely collaborative project. There's a steering committee that consists of 7 organizations. I'll list them off in alphabetical order to help me remember all of them. So those are Conservation International, the Georgia Aquarium, the Mosul Foundation, the Raja Ampat Research and Conservation Center, the Seattle Aquarium, the University of Queensland, that's so helpful, and the Virginia Aquarium. And the project also involves a suite of other initial project partners, including multiple government agencies from Southeast Asia and many other partners within our AZA community and other aquariums in New Caledonia and other parts of the world as well. So it's an intensely and excitingly intensely collaborative project.
Grant, what makes this project so special, and why is it so important for zoos and aquariums specifically to be involved with it in order for it to be successful?
Well, aquariums are the only organizations in the world with the knowledge and experience to breed these animals. We've been breeding them within AZA accredited institutions and other institutions throughout the world for several decades. And so that reproductive knowledge is well entrenched in our general knowledge of these animals, and also the husbandry required for raising up pups and 2 adults and continuing to breed in various aquariums around the country and the world is well known. So it makes sense for the aquariums to be moving in this direction to begin to collaborate with other governments and NGOs and other stakeholders to bring the animals to the table to help solve the problem and begin to re-augment these dwindling populations that are under pressure in the wild. Of course, that can't be done without the work that Aaron just mentioned and yourself, of your team, Jim, ensuring that there are safe areas to put these animals back into the wild, marine protected areas, having local people in those countries take ownership of these programs in their waters and things like that. And so the unique aspect of this program, I think, is that AZA accredited institutions are able to provide the animals for this reintroduction program or augmentation program, and all our partners, NGOs, and other members of our accredited organizations all play a part in bringing this puzzle together. And getting these animals, getting these species back into the areas where they once ranged, and helping to establish future healthy populations of these species.
Yeah, zoos and aquariums have always been really good. Zoos have been particularly good at sort of showing you what are the endangered animals and what are we doing for those endangered animals. And I think aquariums haven't always been quite so forward with that. So the zebra shark, which we're talking about, which is clearly the spotted animal behind Grant, is an animal that's swum by us at aquariums over and over again for years and years and years. And I don't think that we've ever told their story quite so clearly. And we hear about sort of these breeding and releasing programs with zoos all the time. So the black-footed ferrets and others that come to mind that AZA has had some great success with. But Aaron or Grant, could you just really quickly go through what is this going to look like? I mean, we're not raising up our animals and then just releasing them into the wild, right? So it's a little bit different process. So maybe I'll walk us through that just a little bit.
Yeah, if only it were that easy. I'm going to toss this one to you, Grant, but I guess you're that way on my screen anyway. But first, I want to say, just like building off of the conversation we're having right now, we're in this incredible moment where, you know, this is a project that Conservation International and the University of Queensland have been talking about for a decade. And they've needed aquarium partners to move this forward. I mean, they recognized early on that, you know, their organizations don't have the expertise to breed and rear and raise these animals and, you know, release healthy populations of these animals back into the wild. And they need our unique expertise that we have as places where these animals are bred. The flow and complexities behind breeding and rear them, I'm going to pass that over to Grant to take on.
No, absolutely, and it's that collaboration that Aaron just referred to that is that makes these programs successful. For me, the earliest successful program of this nature was the giant panda that started over 40 years ago, where today giant pandas that are being bred in zoos and aquariums around the zoos, particularly around the world, and in China, are being released back into the wild with some limited success. But that success will continue to grow as lessons learned are applied, you know, to the program. This is exactly the same thing, and this is a program that's being driven from in country, looking back to us for help and support as the organizations, the only organizations that have the knowledge to breed these animals and that are able to bring them to the program. That's what makes it successful. That all-rounded, interrelated in situ work and ex situ work coming together to make it successful. The only other kinds of breed and release programs I'm aware of for sharks have been in Australia, where sharks have been large sharks have been bred and just incidentally put back into, or in an ad hoc way, back into the wild due to limited space available in the aquarium there. But that step plus this step, and this one in particular, is really going to help create a framework or a footprint for other species that follow on from the Indo-Pacific leopard shark reintroduction program. So it's important in that respect too. This is not just a one-off for one particular species. This is really creating a footprint for other elasmobranchs that do well in zoos and aquariums, and you know, could follow in the suit of this one.
The short answer, sorry, Grant, Jim, to the short answer, you're like, quick, how does it work from point A to B to C to D? To my, I don't know what it looks like on your screen. This is a zebra shark egg case next to me here above the star logo. That's what they look like right after they're laid. What's going to happen once they're laid, and that's happening at multiple AZA institutions across the United States. Once the right genetic pairs are being bred, and we identify which ones those are, and we're in the process of doing that now, those egg cases will be shipped from those aquariums to the Seattle Aquarium, where we're going to gather a collection of egg cases. They'll then be put through some rigorous protocols to make sure that they're quarantined, that they're sterilized and cleaned, and then being prepared for transport. They'll go into what is essentially a really large chest or a cooler, you know, for lack of any other way of describing it. It might actually just be a cooler with some specialized equipment inside to monitor the water quality inside. Then they'll go on a plane trip from Seattle, escorted to Indonesia, which involves a lot of complexities with multiple stops and health checks along the way. And then eventually we'll land in these two places that you see pictured here. At least that's the initial proposal, is for 2 hatcheries in Southeast Asia in the Raja Ampat region of Indonesia. And then there'll be eggs there. There will be trained husbandry staff trained by AZA professionals, husbandry staff in country in Indonesia who will be trained to care for the eggs, to rear those eggs, to hatch them out to juveniles, to release them out into pens out in the water where they'll be tracked and monitored until they are large enough and healthy enough to fully release out into fully protected areas in both of those areas. That's the short version.
Yeah, it's a big, complicated project with lots of partners, lots of collaborators, and among those collaborators, and as you sort of intimated, Grant, is the Indonesian government. This is not a project that AZA or Western orgs necessarily hatched, and no pun intended, and then sort of dropped into those habitats. This is a sort of a project that's grown more organically from in-country. Can you say a little bit more about that?
No, absolutely. These projects can't be successful without that level of support and engagement from the local community, local authorities that manage these waters, and obviously the national governments of these countries that provide the protections needed for marine protected reserves, monitoring fishing activities and preventing illegal fishing and trafficking of marine products to Asia, all that sort of thing. So a group of NGOs, and I know Conservation International in particular, have been working in that area of Indonesia for a couple of decades now to help establish exactly this kind of resource with the local people, establishing the marine protected reserves, supporting those government initiatives, to the point now where the people, the community there, and the reserves are indeed ready to be starting to receive these animals, as Erin explained, and learn to raise them up and get them back into the wild. And in addition to that, of course, the sub-adults before they're released would be tagged so that they could be monitored remotely in these reserves and be part of tourism engagement programs and all of that kind of thing. So the actual breeding of the sharks and getting the eggs, viable eggs down there to Indonesia and to the facilities that will be established down there is actually probably the easiest part of this whole project. Putting together everything else that's necessary to make these projects successful can take decades. And this one is no different. I believe CI has been working on it for well over 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question from the YouTube chat. It's a big, complicated project, needs lots of hands. Will there be opportunities for graduate students to participate?
Absolutely. So one of the intricacies that we didn't talk much about is that there's a lot left that we don't know yet about zebra sharks. We know very little about their reproduction. We know very little about their survival. We know very little about their site affinity. So there's actually research underway right now being led by the Georgia Aquarium and also the University of Queensland into their population genetics, into how temperature impacts the survival of eggs and the survival of juveniles. So there's research going on right now, and we fully anticipate there being many, many opportunities to engage on research on this project, both on the egg cases and juveniles coming out and being hatched here at AZA institutions in the United States, and then also ample opportunities for Indonesian students also to engage in research in the field once we're in the place where there are animals within Indonesia.
Well, thank you, Grant and Aaron. I think this project, I was excited to finish the day with this and to start the day with the North Carolina Aquarium's far-reaching citizen science project involving sand tigers, because they're both great examples of the kind of really collaborative programming and projects that are really the core of the SAFE program. SAFE has this amazing body of expertise in the 230 odd institutions, but we can't proceed without working hand in hand with conservation partners who've been working in the field countries for years and years and years, and with specifically with those communities, so that we're ensuring that conservation programming is being done in harmony and in concert with those communities, reflecting their values, reflecting their priorities, as well as what we would perceive as the conservation priorities of those areas. So it's an exciting project. We're really excited to be a part of it. Our day of interviews today has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed watching all of them. If you want to see them again, I know they'll be available on the AZA YouTube channel in the future. So I think there'll be a little editing and then those will be available there. And then if you have more questions about sharks, you can certainly reach out to any of the institutions that participated or your local zoo or aquarium. When we talk about the things that people can do to get involved to help sharks, this is a big part of it. If you heard something here that was interesting or surprising or important, then please do share it with other folks in your lives. Please use sustainable seafood products if you choose seafood products at all. Try to participate and support media that tells positive and reaffirming narratives about sharks, and really support institutions that are doing important science-based conservation work. That includes zoos and aquariums, but includes many others as well, like Conservation International, Shark Advocates, Shark Trust. There are a lot of great partners that AZA works with to make that conservation program, make those conservation priorities a reality. So thank you all for tuning in all day today, and hopefully you'll be hearing a lot more from us in the future. So thank you.